This video is brought to you by the 3-Minute Board Game patrons. Keep us independent by supporting us on Patreon. Kia ora koutou, and welcome to this special video from 3-Minute Board Games about Arkham Horror the card game. Today I'm going to run through all the official investigators from Arkham Horror the card game and give them a tier ranking. Now that tier ranking will be largely to do with how powerful I think the character is, but sometimes it will incorporate elements of how fun they are. There are at least a couple of characters who are quite strong who I find really dull, and that will impact their overall rating. We're going to go through each character one at a time, but I'm not going to dwell on their statistics and I'm not going to read everything out. I'm going to put that information up on screen for you. I will give a brief description of each of the characters and what they're good at, but I won't necessarily get into the nitty-gritty of every single thing on their card. I'm also skipping the parallel investigators for the most part. I might talk about them briefly in context of the original investigator they replace, but I won't be ranking the parallel investigators on their own. I simply haven't either played them or looked at them enough to really care. Here's a shout out from me to Justin and the team at Playing Board Games. If you want to find out more about Arkham Horror the card game, go check them out. Justin graciously provided his template for ranking these characters, so I didn't have to build one myself, and that's really nice of him, so thank you, Justin. And I hope you and everyone else watching finds this tier ranking a good time. Okay, let's quickly run through the tiers and what they mean. S-tier characters are either busted or pretty damn close to it. They're characters that, if you can't win the game with them, I'm not entirely sure what you're doing. A is for awesome, and the awesome tier characters are very good at what they do without feeling game-breakingly busted. They're very strong characters, but not in a way that feels unfair or really game-breaking. B tier is kind of where all investigators probably should be if you are balancing this game fairly. Now, it would be impossible to get every character into this tier, but this is where designers should be aiming. And these investigators are very good at what they do, but they do have weaknesses. And they do have a little bit of a challenge to get them up to the same sort of efficiency as an A or an S tier investigator. C tier investigators get the job done, but they might be a little behind others in their field. They are solid, respectable investigators, but maybe lacking a little bit of something. D tier are investigators that really struggle to get going. They might have some genuine upside to them, but they're a lot more work than the tiers above. And F tier is for characters that are fudge. Now, I won't be putting many characters in that tier because I don't think there's that many characters in this game that are there, but there's a couple. All right, we're going to go through this in chronological order of when the characters were released. Thankfully, that is the order that Justin's provided them to me. Alrighty, let's start off with Roland Banks. Now, Roland Banks has 3-3-4-2 across the board, so a good fist score. And his special ability is after you defeat an enemy, discover one clue at your location. Roland gets maximum access to Guardian skills and 0-2 Seeker skills. Roland Banks is a super fair character. He can be a pretty damn good fighter, he can be a pretty good investigator, and he can be an excellent flex investigator. His downside is that he has a really crappy weakness that can easily eat up 2 turns. And if you stuff up on the weakness, it does mental trauma to him, and he's only got 5 sanity to start with. Now, Guardian does give him a lot of ways to deal with having low sanity, but it is something you definitely need to take into account. I really like Roland, but I think he is almost the definition of a C-tier investigator. He's good, he can do pretty much everything in the game reasonably well, but he doesn't particularly excel at anything. There are better Guardian fighters than Roland, there are better Guardian investigators than Roland, but he does the flex roll pretty damn well. But yeah, that weakness just really knocks him down a tier. The second character we have up is Daisy Walker, who has 3, 5, 2, and 2 in her stats. That's 5 big book and 3 brain. That's really good for a Seeker. She's also got access to Mystic cards 0-2, as well as regular level 5 Seeker cards. Her special ability is she can take an extra action as long as it's a tome action. Now, I really like Daisy, and Stephanie, my partner, absolutely loves her. So we're going to grab Daisy, and we're going to put her straight up in the S tier bracket. Daisy goes through clues like a hot knife through butter. She is an exceptional investigator. If you want someone who's just hoovering up the clues, Daisy's your girl, because she essentially gets 4 actions to do it, because those tome actions she gets, they're good for so many things. And as the life of this game has gone on, more and more good tomes come out. Now, you could just do basic old book of lore with her, or encyclopedia to bump up her numbers, but there's other things you can do, other cool, quirky things. You can use library pass with her. There's a whole bunch of fun stuff. And barring 1 or 2 other investigators, no one investigates in this game better than Daisy. She'll essentially be getting 4 actions the whole game, and that is really damn good. Just about every other character that gets a bonus action has to meet some sort of weird or wacky criteria. Daisy's is just have the things that you've got. Having the things you've got gives you an extra action. And a game where you've only got 3 actions per round, having 4 is amazing. Having the access to Mystic cards also gets you some other tomes, as well as some really cool spells and events and get out of jail free cards. Things like Promise of Power just go in any deck you can get it. And it's just another thing that helps Daisy. She can also take stuff to help her deal with the Mythos phase as well. So while she's blasting through clue getting 4 actions, she can also be quite resilient in the Mythos phase as well. And I think that makes her super, super strong. A special note about her Parallel Investigator. Her Parallel version stinks. Never play it. Had a good look at it and went, this is a complete downgrade in every way, shape or form. Why would you even consider it? Next up we have Skids O'Toole, who has 2, 3, 3 and 4 foot as a stat line. His special ability is a fast action that allows him to spend 2 resources to get an extra action. Now that seems pretty cool, but we just looked at Daisy, and Daisy gets a free bonus action for just having a tome, something she's going to have probably from the first turn until the end of the game. Skids has to pay 2 resources to get the same effect, and he's getting the same effect with a much worse stat line. Now as the game's gone on, having high foot has got to be a lot better than it used to be. There are a lot of cards that can just tee off having a high foot score. But it's still only 4, and it's not a 5. I feel Skids could have been so much better if he was tooled up as the dirty fighting character. If his stat line was 1 brain, 3 book, 4 fist, and 4 fight, and he could sort of alternate between that dodging and fighting aspect. Then he could take real advantage of a whole bunch of the cool fighting cards in the Rogue set. Because he also has access to the Guardian set, which gives him some good standbys like Vicious Blows. So if you tweak Skids to have that stat line, he could be quite a fun, cool character. As it is, he's just that 1 point short of being able to do that. So for me, he ends up in the D for disappointing. D for disappointing tier. So let's chuck him here. He is a D tier investigator. I've played him through a campaign. I played him through Dream Eaters. He's okay, but he doesn't have that excellence to push through. And I like the idea of the extra actions, but the extra actions, if you had a 5 and you're paying 2 resources to take like an action with a 5 stat, that might be a lot better. But as it's only his crappy stat line, then yeah, it's not really worth it. His Parallel, on the other hand, I have played that one as well through a campaign, and that was a lot of fun. His Parallel is much better than he is. But I think my variant of him, which drops his brain to 1 and goes 1, 3, 4, 4, would be a lot more of a good time. And I'm probably going to print myself a custom version of that Skids, and that will be my Skids to play. Because remember, this is a cooperative game. You can do with it what you want. You're not playing in tournaments or anything. You can just completely make stuff up if you really want to. If you want to house rule this game, do it to your heart's content. Next up, we have the very first Mystic, Agnes Baker. She's a stat line of 5, 2, 2, 3, with 5 brain being her big skill. Her special ability is if you do 1 horror to her, you can do 1 damage to any enemy at your location. Limit once per phase, so that means you can potentially do it up to 4 times per turn. Agnes has access to 0 to 5 Mystic cards, but also access to 0 to 2 Survivor cards, which is a lot of really cool cards that keep her ticking. Agnes, for me, is a very strong, aggressive Mystic. She's probably my favourite blaster Mystic in the game, because she can just do that spot damage by adding horror to herself. And you can use cards like Forbidden Knowledge, which is almost a signature card for Agnes, to get resources and pop a little bit of horror to yourself and use that horror to do damage to things. Also attack spells like Shriveling, which she can turn into doing extra damage effectively if she suffers the negative consequences. You do need to build in a lot of horror soak when you're playing Agnes, and that can run you on the ragged red line in a couple of campaigns if you don't poke enough soak or you take a few, unfortunate sanity losses or horror losses. But overall, Agnes can pump out the damage. I put her as an A tier investigator. A for pretty damn awesome. I think she's a really good Mystic Blaster. Her alternate version as well, her parallel version's pretty good at that too, but I haven't played that one through. I've just had a look at the character and gone, yeah, I can see how that works, the blood magic idea. But normal Agnes, really good Mystic Blaster. One Mystic I prefer to just play solely as combat. You can play her as a flex, or you could play her as investigation focused, but I feel that extra damage is just so spicy and so good. It's exceptionally good in the Scarlet Keys as well. We found Agnes was an absolute superstar in that campaign, because the ability to do just 1 point of damage on command so you could find the hidden concealed cards was a real big deal. So in that particular campaign, she's S tier. She kind of demolishes the core mechanic, because she can just go pop, 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 and just find all those concealed cards really, really easily. Next up, we have wee Wendy Adams, the Orphan. Wendy has a stat line of 4-3-1-4. That's 4 brain and 4 foot, with only 1 in the fight value. You're not going to be winning a lot of fights with Wendy. Her card access is 0-5 Survivor and 0-2 Mystic. Her special ability is one of the strongest in the game. When you reveal a Chaos token, choose and discard 1 card from your hand. Cancel that Chaos token and return it to the bag. Reveal a new Chaos token. Limit once per test. So if you've got cards in hand, you can just go, don't like the result of that, and discard it. It's one of the few characters who can just ignore the tentacle and go, nah, putting that back in the bag, giving it another go. This is coupled with a horrific weakness, though. So her weakness, Abandon and Alone. Take 2 Direct Horror and remove all cards from your discard pile from the game. A lot of Survivor stuff relies on having things in your discard pile, and cards like Short Supply, you could potentially start the game, discard 10 cards, draw your weakness straight away, and lose all those 10 cards immediately. So every time you're discarding a card to run your special ability, there's a good chance that it's just going to disappear from the game. So while you have that really strong ability, you really can't abuse it if you want to stay alive. I think she's a really neat investigator. I think she's very strong. She fits into the invading investigator type really, really well, where she keeps herself alive by evading monsters and then doing investigations. So she can be a real good sole operator. Her access to survivor cards means that she's pretty damn hard to kill as well. And really, it is your weakness that is the big scary thing you have that's going to destroy your deck of cards. Overall, though, very strong. I'm going to put her, I think, let's put her up in maybe the top of B tier. She could be bottom of A tier. I think I'm going to put her in B tier just because of her weakness. I think she does the work of an A tier investigator. I think she's that good, but I'm petrified of her damn weakness, and I've had it just leave me with a 7 or 8 card deck towards the end of the game, and that's scary. I don't particularly like that. And that's cool. I think, in general, Arkham characters' weaknesses should be brutal. And I think in this first set, most of them are. I think, like, Roland's is particularly horrible, and Wendy's is pretty bad as well. But some of the weaknesses you get later on with later investigators seem pretty trivial in comparison to what poor Wendy has to do. I've had a look at her parallel. A friend of mine has played it, but it just sounds really, really, really busy. So not much comment on the parallel from me on that regard. Right, that's the end of the first core investigators. Now on to Dunwich. Now, one thing to note with the Dunwich investigators is all of them have the same deck building restrictions. They have 0-5 available of their particular class, and then 5 of any level 0 cards. I'm on the fence about Dunwich deck building. I think it's okay for a lot of characters, but others, I think it just, some pools are better than others, let's just say that. And 5 level 0 cards aren't going to solve that problem. Let's kick it off with the first character, which is Zoey Samaras. Zoey has the distinction of being the first character I played through a full campaign with. I played through the Dunwich Legacy with Zoey just after it came out, so that was my very first campaign I played through, and I thought Zoey was a hoot. Her stat line is 4-2-4-2, giving her 4 brain and 4 fist. Her special ability is when she engages with an enemy, she gets 1 resource. There's no limit on that, so you can engage with multiple enemies in a round and get multiple resources. Zoey's signature card ties into this ability really well, because as soon as you engage someone, you can tap that, spend that resource you just got to do 1 damage to the person you just engaged. That's very cool. Zoey is straight up a fighter, and she's very good at fighting, but that's all she does. Don't expect her to do much else. With 4 brain and 4 fist, she's very survivable and very capable of doing damage. She's also very good at running the Cyclopean Hammer, which is probably something people will do with her a lot. There's not much to say about Zoey aside from she's a very efficient fighter, and all those additional resources you get really help. Helps you bring down big items. That said, I tend to use her as a stabber, not really a gun character for some reason. And with the Dunwich spread, I have tended to go into Mystic to pick up things like Spectral Razor. So where am I going to rank her? I think I'll put her safely in the A tier. I think that Zoey is a really straightforward fighter. She kicks a lot of ass. She's tough. I'll probably put her behind Agnes. But she's definitely in that A tier. I think it's really hard to go wrong with her. If you want to just make a pure fighting character, it's kind of hard to go wrong with Zoey. She's got all the tools there. She's got the economy, and that's something you'll really need. And she's just got a great stat line for smacking things and staying alive. And yeah, combined 15 health and sanity is pretty good as well. Next up we have Rex Murphy, who's a stat line of 3-4-2-3. So that's 4 book is his highest. His special ability is after you succeed a skill test by 2 or more while investigating, discover 1 clue at your location. And that has been tabooed to only happen once per turn. Before that taboo, this guy was absolutely S tier because you could quite easily pick up 6 clues a turn with him without really anything other than magnifying classes. As it stands, he's still pretty damn good. I really can't stand his weakness. I do not like shuffle back into the deck weaknesses. I think they're kind of awful. And Rexus can just, derail you in the middle of the game. I think overall he's a very strong investigator. He does the seeker thing well, and getting an extra clue each turn, that's pretty good. I don't think he's the transcendental awesome guy that a bunch of people think he is. I'd put him in the A tier. I think once he's been tabooed, he is not busted. I think getting an extra clue a turn is great, but I'd rather have the extra action a turn on Daisy than just getting the 1 extra clue. Because the extra action on Daisy, I might be able to get more than 1 clue. And also, I don't have to succeed by 2 to get that. Also, Daisy starts with 1 extra book on top of Rex to start with. And he has far less utility and a worse weakness. Rex is one of the easiest seekers to pilot. A bit like how I was talking with Zoey, how it's really hard to go wrong with making a Zoey deck that beats people up and stays alive. It's kind of hard to go wrong with a Rex deck that investigates and gets a ton of clues. Just get his book score up to like 7 or 8 when he's investigating and just hoover up those clues. And having 3 brain and 3 foot does help keep him alive as well. Very strong investigator. I'm going to put him behind Agnes because I really like her blasting capability, but it's really hard to go wrong with Rex. Next up we have Jenny Barnes, who has a stat line of 3-3-3-3 and a special ability of gaining 1 extra resource per turn. Jenny, of course, has access to level 5 green cards and 5 other level 0 cards. Jenny is poor. Jenny is a D tier character, bordering on F tier. She just doesn't have an area she excels at, and that extra 1 resource a turn just isn't enough to cut it. There is another character that'll come later that does what Jenny does just a lot better. So her entire lunch has been eaten in some regard. I will put her in the D tier for now. So I don't think she's completely and utterly unplayable because you can just get a whole bunch of big money cards and pay your way along using Rogue. That's what Rogue does. Rogue can just pay its way to win. And that extra 1 resource you're getting will help you towards that. I just think Jenny could have been a lot better. And I think I'd fix her by giving her a special card that starts in play that allows you to tweak your stats at the start of the round. So for something that allows you to essentially go from a 3-3-3-3 investigator to a 2-2-4-4. And you have to pick like a different set of combinations. So one turn you might be Jenny the Fighter, who has like 2 brain and 2 book and 4 fist and 4 fight. Or Jenny the Scholar, who has 4 brain and 4 book and 2 in the other stats. And you could keep them at 3-3-3-3 if you wanted to, but you have to decide what you're doing at the start of your turn. A little bit like a Lola Hayes, but a bit different. And that would have let Jenny's dilettante character come across quite well as well. Maybe if it's just 1 boost, 1 number going up by 1 a turn, and she can assign that at the start of each turn. That would be something. Because the +1 resource, it doesn't do it. Doesn't give her enough to stand out in the pack. I've barely looked at her parallel as well. It looks like it's skill-based and it could be interesting, but it's still got that 3-3-3-3 stat line, and that's really hard to do anything with. Next up we have Jim Culver, who has a stat line of 4-3-3-2, and that 4 is in brain. And his special ability is you treat the skull tokens you reveal as a 0. Anytime you reveal an elder sign token, you may choose instead to treat it as a skull token. Jim also has a weakness that can do a hideous amount of damage and horror to him, as well as a signature card that does next to nothing. Jim Culver is bad. I think he's a pretty poor character. I'm going to put him, I think, in the D tier. He is very close to being an F tier character for me. There's just nothing he really does that is particularly good. I can't think of any reason to play him above another Mystic. Let's just say that. He is definitely towards the bottom of the stack. I think he might have been an interesting character if his stat line was 4-2-4-2. So if he had 4 fist in there. And he was somewhat of the fighter of the Mystic class. Mystic definitely needs a character with 4 fist. They're really lacking it. A character that isn't Lily Chen. And that way he could have done something other than just being a poor Mystic. He could have fit in a sort of as a tweener there. And he could have used his splash to pick up cards to make him a better fighter. The big thing here is his special ability doesn't do much. That combined with a very ordinary stat line and a class that just goes, hey, if you've got 5 brain, you're good. If you've got 4, you need to do some work. You need to have something else going for you to be as good as the ones with 5 brain. He doesn't have that good thing going for him. So yeah, take for example, when he came out, look at him and compare him to Agnes. There's almost no reason to play him over Agnes. I can't think of one. And the final character from the Dunwich Legacy is Ashcan Pete, who has a very weird and unusual stat line. He has 4-2-2-3 with 4 brain, but most importantly, he has only 6 health and 5 sanity. And that's because you start with Duke in play. And Duke is an exceedingly important part of this character. Duke is an ally that starts in play, but importantly does not take up an ally slot. And Duke allows you once per turn to fight at 4 fist with +1 damage, or move and investigate at 4 book. And each time you do that, you have to tap and exhaust Duke. Now, Ashcan Pete's special ability is to discard a card from hand to untap an asset. So a lot of the time, he's going to be untapping Duke and doing other cool things with him. So yeah, looking at Ashcan Pete, I'm going to put him up in the, I think, top of the C tier. Probably B tier. No, we'll go top of the C tier. I think he's good. I think he has survivor cards allow him to do a lot. Duke allows him to be quite solid. He's very good at the start of a campaign because he's got access to 4 book and 4 fight attacks, but he doesn't necessarily scale as well as some of the other characters. Also, if Duke dies, he's in serious trouble. So if there are mythos effects and other things that target investigators, he can end up in a world of hurt very, very quickly. Because without Duke, he's kind of ordinary. That said, I've had a lot of fun playing him, but I've also seen Duke die and had to play for the rest of the scenario with his basic stat line, and that is not a good time. His parallel is absolutely busted. Pete's guitar should never have been added to this game. It's probably, if not the strongest card in the game, it's close. Because it starts in play and it absolutely, completely dominates how critter control is done in this game. If you haven't seen Pete's guitar, here it is. Not only is it just busted good, it also gives you bonuses. I don't know how this came to be a thing, because it's just absolutely hilariously and obviously a busted card. So yeah, Ashcan Pete with this, starting with this in play instead of Duke, he's absolutely ridiculous. Next up, we have the investigators from the Path to Carcosa. And that starts off with Big Bad Mark Harrigan. Mark has a stat line of 3-2-5-3, and he starts with Sophie in Loving Memory in play. Mark's special ability is after damage is placed on a card you control, draw 1 card, limit once per phase. So Mark's a fighter, and he's going to be taking damage, and he's going to be drawing cards. That's a really good thing. That's extra economy for a Guardian character. Straight away, that's great. Also, he's got 5 fist. That's awesome. If you want to be blowing things up, starting with 5 fist is a great place to start. His card access is a little bit weird, because it's essentially 0 to 5 Guardian cards and an access to tactics at level 0. Now, that doesn't sound like much, but there's actually a bucket load of tactics cards, and they can do some pretty cool things. A lot of times when you see a character's got narrow access like this, you're like, it's not particularly exciting. But with Mark, it happens to work. Sophie allows Mark to take damage onto himself to get a +2 skill check. And if you manage that well through the course of the game and keep the damage below 5, you can essentially have a stat line of 5, 4, 7, 5. And that's pretty damn good. That makes Mark exceedingly resilient to the Mythos deck and capable of, just pulling out the odd action out of his hat. Most of the time, he'll just be blowing things up, but he is capable of doing a 5 evade if needed, and capable of shrugging off some pretty scary Mythos cards. I don't quite think Mark is busted, but he is definitely top of the A tier. He is exceedingly strong, and he's one of the best fighters in the game. I'd be very tempted to put him into S, but he's just a hair's breadth away from that. He'll probably remain top of the A tier, because he's so good at blowing things up. I think he might be the second best pure fighter in the game. If you want to play a guy who has a Tommy gun and blows things up, Mark Harrigan is your guy, because he is so damn good at it. And he's really survivable. He is literally a one-man army. Next up, we have Minh Thi Phan, who I played through the Path of Carcosa with the first time. Her stat line is 4-4-2-2, so that's 4 brain and 4 book, and 2 in the others. Her special ability is, after an investigator at your location commits a card to a skill test, that card gains a wildcard icon until the end of this test. Limit once for each investigator per round. That also means you are one of those investigators, so the first time you commit a card to a test, it's got an extra wildcard symbol on it. And it helps out everyone else at your group. And your special card allows you to help out anyone at any location. Min has 0 to 5 Seeker access and 0 to 2 Survivor access. and that allows her to do a bunch of things, like be really survivable and have access to the test at 0 archetype, which she's pretty damn good at. Min has one of the best designed weaknesses in the game, in my opinion. The King in Yellow is absolutely awful to deal with, but it doesn't come back, and it does derail you, it does slow you down, and you do have to take it into account when you're playing Min, but it doesn't come back, and once you've dealt with it, you've dealt with it. It's like a giant, big road block you have to sort of deal with, but once it's cleared, you can move on. Min's a pretty good seeker in and of herself, but she's an excellent support character. And if you can play her quite skill-focused and add into everyone else's tests, she can be a really good flex that just sort of enables the rest of the party. I'm going to put Min in the B tier. I'm going to chuck her up here behind Wendy. I think she's pretty damn good. I think Survivor access is really cool. Test with 0, she can excel, but I don't think she's quite the raw strength of a Rex or a Daisy. And yeah, I think Min's a very well-designed character. I think she's very cool. She's a good solid Seeker, and you can play her in pretty much any campaign and do all right. And Seeker 5, Survivor 2 is a pretty damn good card pull. Next up, we have Sefina Rousseau, who's a very unusual character. She has a stat line of 4, 2, 2, 4, so her 4s are in her will stat and her foot stat, so not in her book or fight stat, which are what we traditionally would call your do stuff stats. And her card pool is level 5 green cards and up to level 2 purple cards, mystic cards. Her special thing is instead of doing a normal draw 5 cards, mulligan thing, she draws 13 cards. And she can choose up to 5 events to stack beneath her. And then she has access to those 5 events with her painted world cards and other effects. Sefina is all about events. She's very much an event character. And the painted world will allow you to essentially play the same event up to 5 times during a game if you really want to get good mileage out of it. There are some people who say that her mulligan is worse for some reason. I think that's absolutely ludicrous. It mathematically is not worse. It is simply a better draw than anyone else. And if you think that a normal mulligan is better, that is entirely in your head. It's not a mathematical thing at all. It's your own psychology deluding you into thinking that's better. Drawing 13 cards is better than drawing 5, discarding and redrawing. The problem with Sefina is that her stat line does kind of let her down here. And I found from playing her and watching her being played that she starts off quite strong and then tapers off quite quickly during the game. As the events you've got stockpiled dwindle away and you play out your painted worlds, you kind of lose your flexibility and your awesomeness. She's a bit of a duck, where there's a lot of motion underneath the surface but not a lot happening. So you can see all these cards being played in various effects, but they don't end up doing an awful lot. I'm going to put her in the D tier, maybe the top of C, bottom of C. Where are we going? I think D tier, I'm looking at them now. I think she's better than any of the ones that are in there right now. So tentatively, I'm going to put her at the bottom of the C tier. I think she's got a cool central gimmick. I'm not sure if Rogue level 5 events are enough to do it. I think almost she could have been better if she was level 0 to 5 Mystic, 0 to 2 Rogue, or something else. Because I just don't know whether the Rogue events are the right one for this gimmick. Yeah. Sefina, she's tricky, but she is interesting, and that's probably popped her up an extra tier. But I don't necessarily know if she does enough work in a team to justify a spot. Akachi, on the other hand, always does. Akachi is just stone cold, very, very good Mystic. Let's look at her stat line. She has 5, 2, 3, 3, and that 5 is in Brain, which is the Mystic do-everything stat. Her special ability is your assets with used charges interplay with 1 additional charge on them. That's really good. So many things in the Mystic playbook will come in with like 3 or 4 charges. Having that 1 extra charge is really good. For some spells like Brand of Cthulhu, well, it's not that big a deal, but for practically everything else, an extra charge on everything is neato. Her card access is interesting because it's 0 to 5 Mystic as you'd expect. But then it's access to occult stuff, which is some of the researchable things, and then items with uses charge. And it gets us some fun, unusual access. But mostly, you're just going to be playing a lot of spells with her and blasting and investigating away. If your idea of a good time is playing a Mystic, boosting their brain stat through the roof, and getting that brain stat to do absolutely everything with spells and charges, then Akachi is the character for you. I'm going to put her, I think, in B tier, top of B. I don't think she's as good as Agnes. I most likely would play Agnes as a pure blaster, but she is a very good flex, just because everything you're paying for, you're getting that 1 extra use out of. it just means you're not going to be reusing items or going to efforts to recharge them or doing a whole bunch of other wasted actions that you could be spent, investigating or blasting or evading. She really does have one gameplay thing, and that is boost brain, do brain stuff, but that's a lot of Mystics in that regard, and she just picks the core thing Mystic does and does it well, but doesn't necessarily break the game while doing it. She's kind of boring, but she's very effective. Next up, we have William Yorick, who has a stat line of 3, 2, 4, 3. And that 4 is in his combat ability. His special ability is totally Nana's. After you defeat an enemy, play an asset from your discard pile, paying its cost, limit once per round. William Yorick is probably the hardest to kill character in the entire game. You get a bunch of assets that do soak and healing, and you can just keep bringing them back. Will Yorick is just an absolute tank. I'm going to immediately put him straight up in the S tier. Behind Daisy, but I think Will Yorick, you should only lose a game with Will Yorick if the scenario runs out of time. He himself should probably never be killed unless you absolutely stuff up. He is easily the hardest character to kill in the game. And that counts for something. Now, he might not kill the enemies as quickly as, say, someone like Mark Harrigan does, but they will eventually die. They'll run out of patience and he'll beat them to death, and then he'll bring back a shiny trinket for doing so. His signature ability not only gets rid of annoying monsters, it gives you victory points. The guy can give out a bonus XP every game. No one else does that. His card access is Survivor cards and Guardian cards. So you combine that with Four Fist, and he's a pretty damn good fighter out of the gate. And he's virtually unkillable. I played Will Yorick through a couple of campaigns on Tabletop Simulator, and while I think he's exceedingly good, and I've put him in the S tier for busted, that's because he can't die. It's not necessarily because he's the most efficient killer of enemies in the game, but eventually they just tire and fall in a heap because they can't kill the guy. So yeah, I'll put him up in the S tier. He'll end up being up towards the bottom of the S tier. He probably should be in the A tier, but it's just the fact that he's just unkillable tank that makes him a bit busted for me. Next up, we have the actress Lola Hayes, who has a stat line of 3 across the board. And her special ability is quite confusing, but it boils down to she can only play cards matching the current role she is in. And those roles match the different archetypes. So if she's currently pretending to be a Seeker, she can only play yellow Seeker cards. And she can only activate yellow Seeker cards. But she get passive bonuses from any color card. She just can't commit them to a skill test, play them, or activate them. So for example, a tarot card that gave you a plus stat boost would always be active. Her character revolves around switching between these roles. And I think she's a very interesting character, but she's not particularly good. I'm going to put her in the D tier because, she's experimental, she's kind of not very good, but I keep making decks with her and trying it out, and some of them actually work all right. I have a deck that I built for her that is quite good, where she switches into Seeker mode in order to draw cards, into Rogue mode in order to get money, and in Survivor mode to do absolutely everything else. And that seems to work all right. But she's still exceedingly frail, and the deck tends to fall off the rails every third game I play with it. So yeah, I'll put her in D. She's not completely and utterly useless after they errated her, but she's still incredibly hard to get to do the basics well. But she's fun, and she's novel, and she allows you to try out weird and wacky things. I definitely wouldn't recommend her for new players, though. I'm still really struggling how to pilot her. We're now heading into the Forgotten Age characters, and that starts off with Leo Anderson, the expedition leader. Leo has a stat line of 4, 3, 4, 1, and a special ability is after a turn begins, you get a quick reaction to play an ally from your hand for 1 less. Now that's a reaction, which means you can play the ally without it being considered a normal ally action, which means you won't take an attack of opportunity. That's pretty good. You can always just roll out some more fodder. Leo also has access to 0-5 Guardian cards and 0-2 Rogue cards. Now, there's kind of 2 ways to play Leo. The first is to do a ton of allies. Just get the dogs and allies and just sort of throw them out there as a meaty shield. And, maybe use machetes and knives and other bits and pieces. But your focus is on getting a lot of allies into play. The way I prefer to play him is to have a bunch of disposable allies that I use as meat shields, but primarily use them as a big game hunter. Because of his access to blue cards and green cards, he can get some really big guns, and he can use all of the rogue gun events and stuff to load those guns up. So he can get a big bad shotgun. He can use rogue cards to reload it and add extra ammo to it. He can use blue cards to customize it. And he can use his allies to boost the stats up. So he can just turn around and go, boom, Death Star people. And I think that's two big ways to play Leo. As a scrappy guy who just keeps throwing people into a grinder, and as a Death Star who blows people up with his giant cannons. I think he's really good. Okay, so where does he sit? Let's take Leo. He's going to be pretty high up the tiers. Is he the top of B, I wonder? He is a very good fighter. His one foot does come to bite him in the ass a lot, but he does have all those allies to soak. I think I'm going to put him just behind Zoey, or maybe just ahead. I think they're both exceedingly good fighters. And I think Zoey's very good, but I think Leo's got even a little bit more survivability because of his just allies he can throw in your path. I think he's a really tough investigator. But as I say, I prefer playing him as a big guns guy and using cheap allies as meat fodder, but mostly just blowing people up with big blue guns that you've loaded up with lots and lots of ammo. Next up is Ursula Downs, who has a stat line of 3, 4, 1, 4. So that's 4 book and 4 foot. Her special ability is after you move to a location, take an investigate action. Limit once per round. Now, this is one of those great examples of how everyone raves about Rex for getting one extra clue around, but people are down on Ursula, even though it's very easy for her to just about every round get that extra investigate. The card access is kind of mid. She has 0 to 5 Seeker cards and Relic access as well, 0 to 4 Relic. And that does give you some really cool cards, especially some rogue relics that are quite hot. Her high foot score does keep her alive as well, and she's one of those evading investigator types, that sort of dodge and investigate, which is quite good survivability for a Seeker. Just means that if you end up in trouble, you can get away from a monster if your goon is being currently swarmed. I think Ursula is fine. I think she's in the C tier. I'll probably put her behind Ashcan Pete. I don't think she's particularly amazing, but I've played her through a couple of campaigns, and you get Pathfinder, you move around constantly, you take that extra investigate action. You end up getting 4 actions around very, very easily. And just having Seeker card access is really good if all you're doing is investigating. And then access to the extra relics allows you to do some cool, funky stuff as well. Another thing that counts against her is her weakness is another one that gets shuffled back into your deck, and I fucking hate them. So that is a big downer for her. I'd probably put her in B tier otherwise, because she's a fast evadey Seeker that can look after herself, can get 4 investigate actions around very easily. Pathfinder is almost a mandatory thing to include on this character, and it's a great card to include on just about every Seeker, but having a weakness that can just keep coming back really, really irks me. Next up, we have Finn Edwards. Now, Finn has a stat line of 1, 4, 3, 4. That's 4 in book and 4 in foot. His card access is a little weird. It's illicit cards 0 to 5, but then rogue cards 0 to 3. And then a smattering of Seeker or Survivor level 0 cards, 5 of them. More than once I've gone to play Finn and go, oh yeah, it'd be really cool to add in this card, and found out that that's a 0-4 or 0-5 rogue card, but it's not an illicit card and he can't actually have it. Kind of annoying. Finn's special ability is he gets a bonus action each turn in order to evade. And that can only be used to evade. And yeah, that's pretty good. By and large, Finn is an investigator type character who can be a crowd control character who uses evade mostly. Probably wouldn't play him as a frontline scrapper, though. And he's very good at that. He's very good at the evade, investigate, run around, and not necessarily let the monsters get him. That one will, though, that does suck. So yeah, where do I put Finn Edwards? I'd put Finn, I think, at the top of the C tier, maybe bottom of the B tier. Let me have a think of that. His one brain does suck. I think he's very comparable to Ursula Downs, who's there. I think her extra investigate action is actually better than his free evade action. I think her stat line is better. I think he's got more going from as a flex, but I think she's just a more useful overall character, but not by much. I think Finn's pretty solid, but it's that one brain just I don't like. It does help that he's got 7 health and 7 sanity, so he can't just be taken out by 2 quick bad treachery cards, but there's a couple of cards like Frozen in Fear that can just be a right pain for him to get rid of once he's got them. And that eats up that additional action you've got pretty much straight away. Next up, we have Father Mateo, who has a stat line of 4323, with 4 being his brain stat. His special ability is an odd one. When an investigator reveals the tentacle token, cancel that token and treat it as an Elder Sign token instead, limit once per game. His real ability, though, is that his Elder Sign token is an automatic success. And not only is it an automatic success, it also gives you additional actions and or cards and resources. It's very good. His deck building rules are pretty simple, 0 to 5 Mystic and 0 to 3 Blessed. Father Mateo is a character that a lot of people don't particularly care for, but I think he's damn good. I have played a Father Mateo deck that was bordering on busted good. I had a very, very good time with it. Because there are so many ways these days to get lots and lots of tokens out of the bag, and to tune that bag, and to seal things away, and to just, reliably pull out that Elder Sign token a lot more than once every 16 times. With Father Mateo in the right setup, you can be pulling it out probably once a turn. It's really good in that regard, and allows them to just do things that shouldn't be allowable. There's also ways you can engineer for an effect to essentially operate like an Elder Sign. Like, without showing you the entire deck, there are ways you can engineer that the Elder Sign effect happens a lot more than it should. And every time it does, that's an automatic success and extra actions. So you can go into doing challenges that you absolutely no right of doing and just engineer that it's going to automatically succeed. He was exceedingly good on circle challenges in the Circle Undone, because it didn't matter how difficult the test was. If I pulled an Elder Sign, well, I just passed the test even though I was 16 down. So I'm going to put Father Mateo in the A tier, towards the bottom, because I understand that he does take a bit of work to kick off. But when he does kick off, he's a hell of a lot of time. Actually, I might put him a little bit further up. There we go. Pop him in there. Father Mateo is a character, when I have been playing him at the table, people have gone, ooh, that's bordering on a bit stupid. That's a bit ridiculous. And I think that's a great sign when you're playing a character and people are like, you can actually do that? Yep. Oh, that's good. That's good. And yeah, Father Mateo. That Elder Sign ability is so damn good. You just have to engineer as many ways as you can to bring it out. Next up, we have the final character from the Forgotten Age, Kelvin Wright. His stat line is 0000. He has 6 health and 6 sanity, and his special ability is you get 1 brain and 1 book for every horror on you, and 1 fist and 1 foot for each damage on you. Kelvin has access to up to level 5 Survivor cards and up to level 3 Spirit cards. I played Kelvin through a campaign recently, and it was hard work. What he is essentially take a lot of damage to get your stats up to a reasonable but not berserk level. Having 5s across the board is very, very good, but having 5s across the board, which means that the next hit will kill you, is not that useful. I don't think he does enough. I'm going to put him as the first F investigator. I found him so much hard work to get to be okay. And when he was okay, he was one bad mistake from just being defeated. And I think the idea behind Kelvin is a cool idea, a character that pushes himself to that limit and gets better and better the closer they get to the limit. But he's absolute rubbish until he's nearly dead. And then he's good for a little while, but you've got no margin of error. First direct damage or something you take, you're gone, unless you've got the right cards out at the right time. So the campaign I played him in, I think he got defeated 3 or 4 times. And no one else did. So, yeah, that's Kelvin. I think the juice isn't worth the squeeze with him. I think he's very hard to get into an operating position where he's reasonably good. And then once he's there, he's super frail. And I don't think the payoff is worth the effort that you put in. That brings us to the 6 characters for the Circle Undone, starting with Carolyn Fern. Carolyn has a stat line of 3422, with the 4 being in book. Her special ability is after one of your card effects heals horror from an investigator or ally asset, the healed card's controller gains 1 resource. Now, there isn't a limit on that. You can do that as many times as you want. Her deck building is kind of weird. She has access to all the Guardian cards up to level 5, except for weapons from levels 1 through 5, so she can have level 0 Guardian weapons. She also has access to all cards that heal horror, and that can be quite broad. And then she's allowed up to 15 level 0 to 1 Seeker or Mystic cards. She has a really deep pool of cards to draw from. Carolyn is quite flexible, and she can do a lot. but she really does excel at 2 roles for me. The first is as a primary clue getter. She's probably the best Guardian clue getter in the game, with one big exception that I'll talk about later. And she's also a great utility character that supports the rest of the team by keeping their sanity levels up and feeding them resources. There's ways and means to farm this as well, which will generate a lot of resources for people. Now, where would I put her? I think Carolyn goes in probably B tier. I've seen her do a lot of good work as an investigator, and having the extra healing around for horror for the party is never a bad thing. I'm not sure she's a standout character that does whiz-bang things like some of the A's and S's there, but I'd put her in, probably right beside Minh Thi Phan, actually. I think she's in a good spot there. Comfortably B tier. Next up, we have good old Joe Diamond, who has a stat line of 2-4-4-2, with the 4s in both book and his combat ability. That means Joe is really good at investigating and really good at fighting. Well, kind of pretty good at investigating and pretty good at fighting. His card pool is level 0 to 5 Seeker cards and 0 to 2 Guardian cards. So he really is set up to be both an investigator and a fighter. His special ability is really cool. You have a separate deck of 10 cards that are your insight cards, and you shuffle your weakness into that insight deck. Each turn you'll shuffle that up and deal 1 face up, and you can play that card at a reduced cost. On paper, Joe looks like an amazingly flexible guy who can do a whole bunch of everything. In reality, he's a bit of an ordinary fighter, and he's much better as a clue getter. But he's also exceedingly squishy. Only having 2 brain and 2 foot and 6 horror makes for a rather squishy character. And if things go badly, Joe can die from the Mythos deck really easily. That said, he is a hell of a lot of fun to play, but I don't necessarily think he's that powerful. I'm going to put him in the C tier alongside his buddy Roland Banks, because they're sort of the inverse of each other. Joe is a lot more fun to play, but Roland just somehow feels a lot harder to kill. In fact, I think I might put Joe just above Roland, because I think his ceiling is a little higher. So yeah, let's just move him up a little bit. Top of C. I think the Insight deck allows you to do some really cool, fun stuff. And I think that's where Joe's strength is. I think he's a bit rubbish as a flex, but as an investigator who can occasionally fight for himself, he's pretty cool. Next up we have Preston Fairmont, the rogue character. Now he has a stat line of 1-1-1-1, and that looks absolutely terrible. His special ability is every time he gains money, it goes onto the special card. Now this special card gets 4 free resources a turn, but if you don't use all the resources on that card each turn, they go away. You can take an action to take those resources off there into your pool, but in a lot of ways it's better to spend them and let the card refresh. Preston's deck building should be among the strongest in the game. It's 0 to 5 rogue cards and 0 to 2 survivor cards. The problem is, he's not allowed any of the illicit cards from green, and a lot of the really good green cards are illicit. Preston really only has one way of playing, and that is using that giant pool of money to buy your way to victory. And there's a whole bunch of different ways you can do that. You can accumulate giant stockpiles of money in your resource pool and then use those to power effects. You can pay for really expensive cards that are one-offs that you just pay for money to do a whole bunch of good things on your turn. Or you can do what I did, which was try to have the Red Glove Man in play every second turn by summoning and resummoning him. And on turns you didn't have the Red Glove Man out, banking all your actions for turns that you did have him out. I think Preston is a hell of a lot of fun, and there's a lot of cool things you can do with him. I'm going to put him up, I think, at the bottom of A tier, because he's a little bit frail and things can go badly for you, and when they do, it's not good. He can't really recover. But once you get him spinning up and you've got an idea for how to maximize that big pile of money you've got, you can do some really cool, crazy stuff with him. And I did some fantastic things with Preston Fairmont. I played a version of him that didn't keep money in the reserve and relied on the survivor cards that give you bonus effects when you run out of resources in your resource pool. And so he didn't really have a lot of resources in his pool, so he'd run around with his pickaxe just going crazy. Red Glove Man, pickaxe, bonus actions, just hack. Lots of fun. Next up we have Diana Stanley, one of 2 mystics from the Circle Undone. Diana has an interesting stat line. She has 1 brain and then 3s in the other stats. But that 1 brain is deceiving because it can go up to much higher than that. Diana's special ability is she gets +1 brain for each card beneath her. And you have a reaction which says, after a card you own cancels or ignores a card effect or game effect, and there are fewer than 5 cards beneath Diana Stanley, place that card face down beneath her, and draw one card and gain a resource. That means she can get up to 6 brain. And there are a lot of good Mystic cards that cancel or stop things from happening. So she's very much a denial character. You can tool her up to be a bit of a fighter, you can tool her up to be a bit of an investigator, but she kind of works as a good flex character who is both supporting the team by making the Mythos deck easy to tolerate, and then, contributing with her spells to pick up some clues and do some damage here and there. Her deck building is Mystic 0 to 5 and Guardian 0 to 2. So she does lean into that Guardian defending fighter type role, but it's mostly defending the team from the Mythos deck more than it is directly dealing with enemies. I think Diana's rock solid. I just think she's not the most interesting character to play, because a lot of the time what you're doing is stopping bad stuff from happening. And so yeah, I think I'll put her at the top of C. Was that about the right place for her? Maybe bottom of B. We'll just put her in the B here, because she can stop a lot of really bad things from happening, and you get an advantage from doing that. So not only do you get the bonus from not having the bad thing happen, she also gets to draw cards and do stuff afterwards and boost her brain stat up. So you're actively encouraged to take apart the worst parts of the Mythos deck. And I get that that's a big Mystic thing, is to deal with the Mythos deck, but in some ways it kind of makes the rest of the game a lot easier and less challenging. So yeah, Diana Stanley, she's pretty robust. She can get a very high brain score, and it's not that difficult to get up to 4 or 5 and maybe even 6 brain with her and start throwing around good spells. But really, she is about that denial gameplay, and that's fun for some people, and it's really dull for others, and I find her kind of okay. Next up, we have Mary Lambeau, a character I'm quite partial to. She has a stat line of 4-4-1-3, with the 2 4s being in book and brain, and her special ability is if you have 1 or more Doom among cards you control, you may take an additional action on your turn, which can only be used to play spell cards or activate spell-like abilities. Her card access is quite unusual. She has spell cards 0 to 5, so that includes a whole bunch of cards from different classes. She has Mystic 0 to 3, Occult cards level 0, and a smattering of other Survivor and Seeker cards. She has an absolutely horrific weakness, and it does drive how I play this character quite a bit. I primarily enjoy playing Marie as a dedicated clue getter, and getting her book score up using those Seeker cards, and some of the other cards within the Mystic pool that boost up your book score as well. And I primarily focus on her as a, basic book investigator, and having 1 Doom doesn't drive your entire deck, because the Doom cards, by and large, are kind of awful. You simply use the 1 Doom to be able to cast a spell or do a spell effect each turn, but you do most of your stuff just using your book score. She has access to a really amazing combination, and she is the investigator I have got the most clues in a single action with in the game, and that was 9 clues. I cleared 1 location of 9 clues in 1 action, and that was a jolly good time. And I might put up on the screen some of the cards she has access to that enabled her to get there. It did require getting her stats pretty high and dumping nearly a whole hand of cards into the skill test, but 9 clues in 1 action is just hilarious. So yeah, Marie Lambeau, I think she's much better than a lot of other people do. I'm going to pop her up into the B tier, and I'm going to put her quite a way up in the B tier. I have done really good things with her. I think her weakness is vicious, but she also, because of Mystic, has tools that allow her to never see that weakness. I played through an entire Hemlock Vale campaign, and the only time I saw her was when another player forced me to draw an additional card because of a card effect that was happening. You see, I ruthlessly used this particular card to see what my top card is, and I only placed Doom on this card to bury a certain weakness. And that meant I played Marie without a lot of card draw. Let's mind that. I didn't draw a lot of cards, but it worked remarkably well. You manage Marie, you can get really good results with her. I don't think she's remotely as bad as a lot of people put out. She has really cool deck building, access to a whole bunch of cool tools, and a 4th action that you can pretty much get on demand. And I am a big fan of 4 action characters. Next up we have Rita Young, who has a stat line of 3-2-3-5, with the 5 being in foot. Her special action is after you invade an enemy, either deal 1 damage to that enemy or move to a connecting location. Limit once per round. Rita has access to level 0 to 5 Survivor cards and level 0 to 3 Trick cards, a lot of which are Survivor cards, but a bunch of them are green cards as well. They're rogue cards. And you can do a whole bunch of cool stuff with tricks. A lot of trick cards revolve around her high foot score. Rita is the best evade character in the game, probably. Well, she's right up there. A high foot score, survivor, plus those tricks means there's an awful lot of things she can do that makes foot matter. I think she's a bit of a one-trick pony, though, and I don't particularly care for a gameplay loop. Because I'm one of those people who thinks, yeah, evade is good and all, but sometimes you just need to kill things, and Rita's not quite as good at killing things as she is at evading them. She can be tooled up to become a reasonable fighter. She's definitely got the ways and means to be quite a good fighter with evade first. But by and large, she's never really impressed me as a character. I think I'd rather have someone who can evade occasionally and fight often rather than someone who can evade all the time and fight occasionally. So, yeah, I'll put her in probably C. I think she's reasonably okay. Yeah, I'll put her behind... Yeah, I'll put her alongside Finn Edwards. I think that's kind of a comparable spot. I think Finn's got more utility than Rita, but Rita's just very good at what she does. But what she does is kind of a one-trick pony. Then we are on to the Dream Eaters, a very strong set of characters coming in. The first one of those is Tommy Muldoon. His stat line is 3-3-4-2, with a 4 being in combat. His special ability is when an asset you control is defeated, gain X resources, where X is the total amount of damage and horror on that asset. Shuffle that asset into your deck. Tommy has access to 0 to 5 Guardian cards and 0 to 2 Survivor cards. Tommy is a tough cookie. Tommy's probably the second hardest character to kill in the game after Yorick for pretty much the same reason. You can get down an awful lot of soak, and every time it dies, you get its money back and it gets put back into your deck for you to draw later. It's not quite as good as Yorick's, but it does make him pretty tough. I'm going to take Tommy, and I think I'm going to put him not in the same tier though. I don't think he's as good as William Yorick by any means, but he's probably a solid B tier investigator. Yeah, we'll just chuck him in the middle there. I think Yorick's immediacy of getting the asset back into play is just that much tougher than Tommy's ability to get the resources and then bring them back later. Yorick will rarely ever be out of things to soak with, where Tommy might have to just keep drawing them from his deck, and he doesn't necessarily have great card draw with his deck building. He's also probably the best character in the game for using this armor. Like, he can soup it up, give it tons of soak, and when it dies, it goes back into the deck, and he gets a ton of resources. I haven't played a deck with this combination, but I feel it would be quite good. So if you're looking for a good combat investigator that's pretty tough, Tommy's a good pick. He sort of has a playstyle that's sort of half Leo Anderson, half Will Yorick, but not quite as good as either of them. Next up we have Mandy Thompson, a character I've only ever seen played with the tabooed version, which is that it has to be a 50-card deck. So her stat line is 3-5-1-3, with the 5 being in book. Great news for an investigator character. Her special ability is when an investigator at your location would search their deck or the encounter deck, they might either search 3 additional cards or resolve 1 additional target of the search. Limit once per round. Mandy has a 50-card deck. That's a thing you kind of have to play with if you're playing the taboo. If you're not playing taboo, she can go down to a 30-card deck, and that makes her even more silly. Her deck building is bonkers good. I'm not going to read it all out, but you get to pick a secondary class and get a whole bunch of cards from there as well. And that's on top of having access to 0 to 5 Seeker. Mandy is exceedingly good. There are easily 50 good cards you can put in a deck of cards, and she can just drill through and find what she needs exceedingly easy. She is a character who can get a giant toolbox and just rummage through it and pull out the tool she needs at the right time. If she had 30-card deck, she would be an S-tier investigator for me, no doubt. As it is, she's just nudging on that barrier between A and S. I think she's incredibly strong, though. Very good investigator. One of the best clue getters in the game. But it's that ability to go through and just pull out extra stuff from your deck when you need it that makes her very good. If you're building a deck around signature cards, she's very good because she can just pull out the specific powerful piece you want to cornerstone your deck and just get to it faster than anyone else. Even with the 50-card deck. The 50 cards is almost necessary to make her work as a real character. I just don't think she functions very well with less than that. She becomes too overtuned and a little bit busted. But I think as a 50 card character, she's a very good investigator. You've got those great design options inside her deck building, so you can customize her a whole bunch of ways. And yeah, whatever you need at a certain time, you can reach into that magical bag and pull it out. Great investigator. Next up, we have Tony Morgan, the character I first played through the Innsmouth Conspiracy on my blind playthrough. He has a stat line of 2, 3, 5, 2, and the 5 is in his combat ability. His special ability is he has an additional action during his turn, which can only be used to engage or fight an enemy with one or more bounties on it. So he has this bounty system. He starts with a limited pool of bounties, and he can put those on critters as they spawn, and when he kills them, he gets a resource back off them. So it's free money and a bonus action. What's not to like? His deck building is very similar to Mandy's. He has 0 to 5 rogue cards and then can pick one of 3 secondaries and get extra cards from them. The first time I played him through, I played him with Guardian, and that worked out really well. What to say about Tony Morgan? Tony Morgan has 5 fight. Tony Morgan has access to green guns and the Switchblade 2. Tony Morgan can get lots and lots of actions. He gets free actions. He gets free money. Tony Morgan is all kinds of stupid good. As far as I'm concerned, he is the best fighter in the game, and I will fight anyone over that. And he might be the best character in the game. If not, he's probably the best character that doesn't feel completely and utterly totally busted. He is so good at killing people. Like, you can do so much with just Switchblade 2 and a ton of actions. Just go out there and fillet people. Tony Morgan's just the best fighter in the game. Like, just play him once. Load him up with things that give you extra actions. Give him some weapons. Give him some bounties and just send him out there. Give him 6 or 7 actions a turn that he's attacking and killing things. He's so good. I had a really good time playing Innsmouth with Tony Morgan. And yeah, if someone said, which character do you want to play as a fighter in a hard game, and you absolutely have to carry the team as the fighter, I'd be like, give me Tony Morgan every time. S tier. He's so good. It's almost too good. So yes, if you picked it up, the Dream Eaters has some very strong characters, and the next one is Luke Robinson. Luke has a stat line of 4, 3, 2, 3, and the 4 is in his brain ability, which drives mystic stuff. He has access to 0 to 5 mystic abilities and 0 to 2 seeker ones. And that leans him into an investigator type, or you can just use the seeker cards for a bunch of card draw and movement. His special ability is he has the gate box, and the gate box breaks the game. That's just all it does. It allows you to essentially move into a pocket dimension and move around the board like your Doctor Who in the TARDIS. And for that, I'm going to move Luke straight up to the S tier for Busted, and probably put him just here. Because he breaks scenarios. He does things that just hideously unbalance the game. Like, he probably shouldn't exist. He's that awkward. It's not that he's great or good and necessarily super powerful and passes every test. He just gets past a lot of scenario mechanics in a way that feels like cheating, because he can just go, yeah, I'm out, and just disappear into his pocket dimension. He also has the ability to use events from one space to an adjacent space, so he can sort of pop into his pocket dimension and lightning bolt people. It's very janky. I've seen Luke play it exceedingly well. He did a very good job in a campaign we played, and I played him in a tabletop simulator campaign myself, and was like, yeah, this guy's a bit cheaty. I don't know if I want to play him in again. I would certainly never play him in a blind playthrough of a campaign, because I think that's a way to sort of wreck your blind playthrough a little, because Luke is just so good at janking himself out of how scenarios can do things, because he just pops out of one thing and pops into another place. So you just travel around the board and do what he damn well pleases. So yeah, a cool idea, but I imagine every scenario designer, when they make a scenario, goes, okay, I've made the scenario, it works. Now, how does Luke interact with it? And that's a terrible place for a character to be. Next up, we have Patrice Hathaway, who is the most powerful character in Arkham Horror 2nd Edition. Now, her version in Arkham Horror the card game isn't quite that mighty, but I find her a very fun character to play. Now, she has an unusual stat line of 4-2-2-2, with the 4 being in her brain stat. Her card access is 0 to 5 Survivor and 0 to 2 Mystic. What sets her apart though is she only has a hand size of 5, but what happens is at the end of each turn, she discards her entire hand and redraws a new one. So she has a completely unique playstyle. You can't hold cards back and decide what to do with them. You've got to essentially play everything each turn or lose it, which leads her into a lot of skill play or a lot of cheap events. And she loves fast cards. This unique playstyle can be a lot of fun, but equally it can be very challenging. So I'm going to put her... I think she's cool. I think she's a lot of fun to play, but a bit like Sefina, she just doesn't quite do enough. I've had her deliver some pretty good results as a primary clue getter. I've seen someone else play her and do all right with her as well. Yeah, you really have to lean into the idea that my hand is going away each turn, and what can I do with that? She's had a big boost from the recent discard cards, but I haven't played her with the discard cards from Drowned City yet. I think she might go up a little if I had played her through with those, because the other guy that uses those discard cards, he's pretty good. So yeah, I'd maybe put her in C tier. I think this is where she belongs. I think fun-wise, she is higher than this. I think she's one of the most fun characters to play, but for efficacy, she's definitely down in the C tier. Next up, we have the standalone Investigator cards. Now, all of the Investigator starter deck cards, they only have access to 0/5 cards from their single color. They don't have any extra access, so they are very much one-note characters when it comes to their deck building. So yeah, let's start with Nathaniel Cho. He's a stat line of 3-2-5-2, with a 5 being in his combat stat. His special ability is once per phase, if you play an event card that does damage, it does an additional damage. Nathaniel Cho is exceedingly strong and exceedingly dull. He kind of has one deck that he does really, really well, and that's about it. And that is boxing gloves. He's very good with the boxing gloves and loading up on spirit events and playing a lot of spirit events and doing stuff. Now, you can do other things with them, but invariably you start looking at the other things you're doing and going, yeah, but boxing gloves would be quite useful here. You start thinking, can I, have a shotgun and then boxing gloves as well as a bandolier? But then you go, actually, with the upgraded bandolier, I can have 2 sets of boxing gloves and get +4 fight and draw 2 cards every time I do something. That would be much better. So yeah, he's very strong, but he's very dull. I'm going to put him up into the A tier. He is, I don't think, quite as good a fighter as Mark Harrigan. I'm going to put him just behind Rex. But he is really, really solid. Perfect for what he is, which is a starter investigator character where they go, hey, here is a character that has one straight up thing. He has boxing gloves, he plays events, and he does a ton of damage. If someone turns up at the table and they're playing Nathaniel Cho, I'm very comfortable that the fighting for that team is well and truly dealt with. But as a guy who likes making decks that are janky and weird, he's a hard one to work with because it's very hard to move away from double boxing gloves, lots of spirit. Next up, we have Harvey Walters, a character that was created for Call of Cthulhu back in the early 80s. This guy has been around the Cthulhu mythos forever. And he's one of the first characters to appear in Arkham Horror, the board game as well. And he's continued all the way through to the current iteration. Harvey is the original Cthulhu investigator character. His stat line is 4-5-1-2, which is really good for a Seeker. And a special ability is once per round, when someone draws a card, they draw an extra card. So it's just extra card draw. That's a bonus action. Harvey tends to lean into big hand decks, where you like drawing lots of cards and do lots of things. He is really, really strong. Really robust. He's like Nathaniel Cho, he's a bit boring. He's pretty much get lots of cards, use them to investigate. I'm going to put him pretty high, though. He's going to go right the way up, I think, just behind Mandy. Maybe just behind Rex, actually. Yeah, just in front of Nathaniel. He is very strong Seeker. Does the basics of Seeking exceedingly well. He's just a little bit on the boring side. But sometimes you just want to win the game. So you take Nathaniel Cho, you take Harvey Walters, you play a 2-player game, and you absolutely smash it. Now, while the first 2 characters from the Investigator decks were kind of boring, we're now onto a really cool character, Winifred Habbamock, who has a stat line of 1-3-3-5. Her special ability is if 2 different non-weakness cards you control are committed to a skill test, draw 1 card. Limit once per test. Winifred operates in a very weird and fun space. And that is at every test you're trying to commit 2 cards and figuring out a way to get 2 cards back from it. And just riding the edge until you draw the tentacle and everything falls in a heap. She is an awful lot of fun to play. You do have to lean into the idea that foot is the stat you're going to be doing all your checks with, but with green cards, you can get around to that. I like playing with the black market card, or whatever it's called, the one that allows you to take all your items out of the deck and have them in a separate deck, and then you just have like 30 skill cards and just run through them while bringing in items once a turn. I think that's a super fun way to play her. Of course, with one brain, she's incredibly vulnerable to some things, but yeah, she is an absolute hoot to play. I'm going to put her, I think, in A tier, both because she's very fun to play, but because when things kick off with her, she is extremely good. Like, if you get your skill cards rolling and you get on a run, you can do some pretty amazing things with her. So I might put her just in front of Agnes. I really like Winifred. I've played her through multiple campaigns, and each time it has been a whale of a time to play her. And yeah, there's sometimes you crash and burn and you have a horrible game with her, but you can just get on some supremely cool rolls with her, and she can kind of do everything. So really fun flex character. I wouldn't necessarily bring her along as a specialist clue getter or a specialist fighter, but she's really good at crowd control. She's really good at doing a little bit of everything with her foot stats. So great fun character. And of course, as a rogue, she's got tons of resources so she can power everything and just loads and loads of skills. So all little bonuses you'll get from playing skills, because you'll ideally be wanting to commit like 6 skills around if you can. Next up, we have Jacqueline Fine, another one of the original Arkham Horror characters. She has a stat line of 5322, which is almost perfect Mystic stats. Her special ability is when an investigator at your location would reveal any number of Chaos tokens, reveal 2 additional tokens. Of the revealed tokens, choose and cancel 2 non-tentacle tokens or 1 tentacle token. Limit once per round. Jacqueline's all about fishing tokens out of the deck, and this is a really, really strong ability. It allows her to use some cards like Voice of Ra really effectively, and any of the Mystic cards that revolve around symbols she can use to good effect. You can lean into this archetype, and I recommend you do, and that will allow you to really manipulate the Chaos bag and get a whole bunch of good results. Jacqueline Fine is exceedingly strong. Like some of the other standalone investigators, she's a little bit on the comparatively dull side, but I really like that bag manipulation sub-game. So I'm going to put her just ahead of Agnes. I think she's really strong, and there's some cool stuff you can do with her just with that basic manipulation ability out of the box. Her wingness kind of sucks, and it can be a little irritating to get rid of, but overall, Mystic is a class that can work really well just with Mystic cards, because you just go on Brain Matters, pump up that brain score, and then you use her ability to draw different tokens out and manipulate the bag. And that can deliver really great results. You might be picking up on a theme here. I do like that kind of bag manipulation stuff. It's a good time. And the last character from the Investigator packs is Stella Clark. Stella has a stat line of 3234, which is a bit of a nothing stat line. But she has a really cool ability and some other cool cards. Her ability is, after you fail the skill test, you may take an additional action during your turn this round. She also has 3 signature cards that you can commit to a skill test that basically mean there's no penalty for failure. You're either going to pass the test or suffer no negatives. Very, very strong cards. Stella has one exceedingly strong deck, and that is the Quick Learner deck. You get 2 versions of Quick Learner, you put them on Stella, you fail the first test, you have some things that trigger off you failing, and then you get really big stats for your later tests in the round. And she's very good at doing that one particular deck. But aside from that, I find her a little bit dull. So if I was going to rank Stella Clark, I would probably put her somewhere in the B tier. Towards the bottom of the B tier. I think she can do a lot, but that Quick Learner deck is an A tier deck, but I think that's kind of the one trick that Stella's got. And aside from that, she's a middling sort of survivor. In fact, I'll put her behind Ashcan Pete, because I think Pete's actually, I think Pete's better in that regard, except for the Quick Learner deck. So no, I will put her back up. It's that Quick Learner deck. That's the one thing I've seen her do that's really, really good. And aside from that, just a little bit boring. Now we're on to the Innsmouth Conspiracy, and we start off with Sister Mary, who has a stat line of 4233. And her special ability is you start with 2 Blessed tokens in the bag, and she adds 1 Blessed token a turn. Her deck building is 0 to 5 Guardian cards and 0 to 2 Mystic cards. So unlike Carolyn Fern, this nun can have guns. Sister Mary's in kind of an awkward place. It's almost like she should have been 0 to 5 Mystic, 0 to 2 Guardian, because the problem with having a high brain score and access to Mystic cards is that you don't get access to the really high-level ones that do the big dramatic effects. She's also just not tough enough to be really a frontline fighter, so she ends up in this weird sort of support space, and she's not necessarily kitted out to do that. There are other Bless characters I think do the Bless job much better. So I'm going to put Sister Mary probably in the D tier. You can tool her up with things like the Holy Spear and have her run wild, but it does require a whole bunch of setup. And I think there are other characters that do that better. Now looking at that, I'm looking across the other 4 characters in there, and I have definitely seen Sister Mary do better things than the other 4 there. So I might just put her at the very end of C tier. Because I know she is capable of doing more than Skids or Jenny or Jim. So maybe D is a little harsh. Bottom of C. Next up we have Amanda Sharp, who has a stat line of 2, 2, 2, and 2. That's absolutely terrible. Her special ability is you draw a card each turn and tuck it under her, and you can essentially commit that card to every test you do that turn. Her card acts as a Seeker and Practice Skills level 0 to 3. But she is the practice makes perfect character. Let's just say Amanda Sharp is hands down, no doubt about it, the most busted character in this game. She goes above Tony Morgan, straight to the top. Even using her as intended by having a couple of stat boosts and then chucking down deduction 2 under her. So 2 magnifying glasses, deduction 2, and you investigate 3 times a turn and get 9 clues. That's really good. But that's the bare minimum of what she can do. And there's a whole bunch of other combos you could do with her that just wreck the game. I think playing in a fair Amanda Sharp deck, the one that just treats her as written and doesn't go too crazy about the things you're putting under there and what you engineer, she's very, very strong. But she doesn't need much to turn her from being very, very strong to absolutely wrecking the game. A friend of mine has a story about someone they played a campaign with who net decked a very powerful Amanda Sharp campaign and essentially solved the whole campaign by themselves while everyone else sat there just watching them go through this combo, like drawing up their entire deck, assembling the 3-piece staff, and just doing stuff each round. And that doesn't sound particularly fun to me for anyone else at the table. So yeah, Amanda, if you play her in a sane way, in a sort of decent, I'm not trying to break the game, I'm just leaning into the cool aspect of the character, she's a good time. But she is far too easy to bust the game with. Next we have the Spy, Trish Scarborough, has a stat line of 2, 4, 2, 4. And those 4s are in Book and Evade. Her ability is after you discover 1 or more clues at a location with an enemy, either discover 1 additional clue at the location or automatically evade that enemy. Limit once per round. She has access to 0 to 5 Rogue cards and 0 to 2 Seeker cards. Possibly the best pool access of any character in the game. Trish Scarborough is really good. She is one of the best investigators in the game. She also can keep herself alive with all of her evasion stuff, and her access to high-level rogue stuff gives her some real game-breaking abilities. I am tempted to put her in the S tier. I am very, very tempted to put her right up in the S tier. But I'm not sure she's busted. I think I might put her just in front of Daisy Walker. She's definitely on that level with Daisy. Like, Trish, Daisy, and William might not be absolutely game-breaking, but I know if they're turning up, they are doing their job and then some. Every time. There's very little you can do wrong with them. Trish is like that. She gets the bonus clue each round, so, like Rex, but she also can get an automatic evade. And there's ways and means you can just ping off a clue and automatically evade an enemy. So handy. She's got a great set of cards she can build towards as well. She can take advantage of that high foot score as well if she needs to. And yeah, she is just a great investigator character. I think it might be controversial to put her that high, but I stand by that. I think she's really, really strong. Down we go to Dexter Drake, the mystic from the Innsmouth Conspiracy. He has a stat line of 5, 2, 3, 2, with the 5 being in Brain. His special ability is a fast action. During your turn, discard an asset you control. Play an asset with a different title from your hand, reducing its cost by 1. Limit once per round. So he can ping assets back and forth between his hands. This is really good if you've got something that has charges on it or ammo on it and you want to ping it back to your hand so you can replay it later. fully recharged. With 5 brain, Dexter's a very strong mystic straight out of the box. But because of his card access, which is 0 to 5 mystic and 0 to 2 rogue, he has access to some really neat little tricks as well. I think he's very good. And it's pretty hard to say a 5 brain mystic deserves to go anywhere below B. So I'm going to put him right beside Akachi, just ahead of Akachi, top of the B tier. He's a lot of fun to play. I played him in Tabletop Simulator and had a lot of fun juggling things back and forth. I almost wish, though, that he was a 4 brain mystic and had 4 fist, because that might have opened up a bunch of different options. Or slightly different stats so he could take advantage of some of the rogue guns. Because there could have been a very different archetype here that wasn't necessarily mystic using brain all the time, but using some mystic stuff mixed with using the guns a lot more than he does. They really just didn't want to give us a 4 fist mystic, did they? What a pity. And the final character from the Innsmouth Conspiracy is, of course, Silas Marsh. And I do like the thematic thing that Amanda and Silas are 2 characters that came out in the Innsmouth Conspiracy, because in the lore, they are the ones with Innsmouth blood. I thought that was a nice touch from the designers. Silas has a stat line of 2244, with the 4 being in fight and fist. This is very similar to the stat line I wanted for Skids O'Toole, and plays like that. In a lot of ways, Silas plays like that kind of investigator I was talking about there. He's an evader and he's a fighter, and he's very skills driven. His special ability is when you reveal a chaos token during a skill test you are performing, return a skill you committed to this test to your hand, limit once per round. So you can overcommit to a skill test, and if you draw a beneficial token, you can just go, okay, cool, I'm going to pull that card back. I don't need those pips. That's great at managing your limited resources. His deck building suits what he does. He has Survivor Access 0 to 5 and Innate Skills 0 to 2. That gives him quite a cool skill pool. If you like playing with skills and throwing skills into challenges, Silas is a really fun character to play. He's one of those ones, though, that can hit a bit of a wall if you run out of skills, a bit like Winifred. A couple of bad tests in a row and losing your skills can leave you a bit exposed. But still, I find him a very effective fighter and crowd controller. I'm going to pop him up into, I think, top of the B tier. Sounds about right for him. Yeah, top of the B tier. Maybe bottom of the A. Oh, what do we do with that? Sorry. Where did Dexter go? Dexter was ahead there. So we'll put Silas up, I think. Yeah, we'll put him at the bottom of the A tier. He's pretty good. Right, next up we have Edge of the Earth, which have very weird deck building rules, each of the next 5 characters. Their deal is they start off as one class and then they advance into another class. And the first character from this group is Daniela Reyes, who starts off as a Guardian and advances into Survivor. Her stats are 4, 1, 5, 2, with the 4 being in Brain and the 5 being in Fight. Her special ability is after an enemy attacks you, accept an attack of opportunity if provoked. Even if that attack was cancelled, either deal 1 damage to that enemy or automatically evade it. Daniela is an amazing tank character and a really good fighter. But the only thing counting against her is her lack of access to high-end weaponry, because the survivor weapons are a bit crap. That said, her special ability is great, and having 4 Brain and 5 Fight makes her an incredibly good fighter. I'm going to chuck her up into, I think, the high end of the A tier. I think she might be just behind Mark Harrigan in terms of pure fighting ability. Let's just scroll that all the way up. Yeah, I'm pretty comfortable banging her in there. She is tough. She's like really quite a hard character to kill. And her ability to deal out damage and automatically evade things is a big deal. It also doesn't say on her character card, non-elite. So she can be attacked by a big boss and automatically evade it. So yeah, Daniela is a super tough, super efficient fighter. Going into Survivor isn't necessarily the best thing about her, but it seems to work out. Still, she's not quite at the level of Mark Harrigan or Tony Morgan for me. Next up, we have Old Man Norman Withers, who has a stat line of 4, 5, 2, 1. With the 4 being in Brain, the 5 being in Book, and the 1 being in Foot. His special ability is he plays with the top card of his deck revealed, and once per turn can play that card at a discount. Now, Norman starts off as a Seeker and heads into Mystic. And I think he's a very interesting character. I've only played him a short campaign. And what I did with him was pump up his book score and just use the Mystic access to get like cool effect cards. Things that gave him lots of utility. But I think you can turn him into a really interesting flex character as well. So where am I going to put him? I'm going to put Norman probably in B tier, top of B. He might be better than that, but I'm not that familiar with him. So yeah, I'll probably put him around that area of the B tier. Do I go a little bit higher? Yeah, I might put him towards the bottom of A tier. I think he's quite good. A Seeker Access, he can start off straight out of the box as a really, really good clue getter, and then that Mystic Access allows him to pivot to do unusual and wacky things later on. So yeah, he could be a lot of fun. This one is not necessarily a great expert opinion because he's one of the characters I've played least. Next up, we have Monterey Jack, the Explorer. Monterey has a stat line of 1, 4, 2, and 5, with the 4 in book and the 5 in foot. His special ability is if he ends his turn further locations away, he can pick up cards and resources. Monterey Jack starts off as a rogue and moves into Seeker. So he starts with green cards and can upgrade into experienced yellow cards. A friend of mine played this guy through the Forbidden Age, and he died a lot. Monterey Jack is super, super squishy. That 1 dot in brain and 6 sanity means that you are vulnerable sometimes to just really bad effects taking you out of the game super quickly. Even more so than Finn. And he falls into the same kind of niche as Trish Scarborough or Ursula Downs, but I think both of them do what he does better. The transition from green to yellow experience cards is also a bit of a whiffy one. I almost want it to be the other way around, that he started off with yellow cards and transitioned into the green experience cards. I think that would make him a much better investigator. So as it stands, I think he's good. I think he's not much better than Ursula Downs, though, so I'm going to pop him into the C tier, and I think I'll pop him just ahead of Ursula. Yeah, he's I'll put him just behind Finn, actually, because I think I'd rather play Ursula or Finn to do the job that Monterey Jack does. That's just me personally. But not by much, not by much. It's that 1 brain and 6 horror, though. That is something you need to take into account because it really sucks. Next up, we have Lily Chen, who's a very interesting character. Her stat line is 3, 2, 4, 3, with the 4 coming in her combat ability. That makes her the 4 combat mystic, which would be really cool. Unfortunately, she can't get veteran mystic cards. She starts out with mystic access, but moves into guardian experience cards. Her special ability is kind of wacky. She has these discipline cards, and each of them gives her a stat boost and a little special ability. And if you use that ability, you flip it over. And in order to flip it back over and get access to the stat boost again, you need to complete a specific task, which is unique to each one of them. It's quite a cool gameplay loop. You get one of those discipline cards at the start of the game, and you get another one for every 15 XP you pick up. So once you get to 45 XP, you'll have all of them. I like Lily Chen. I think the best way to play her is to go straight into combat and just start tooling her up as a fighter character. Having 4 brain and 4 fight isn't as good as having 3 brain and 5 fight, in my opinion. And you start off with some basic melee weapons, and you just build her up as a fighter from there. A fighter who's got access to some cool basic mystic stuff. I think she's pretty good. I don't think she's as good as some of the other fighters we've just talked about. I'll put her in the B tier. I'm going to put her around about here with Tommy Muldoon. I think that's about where Lily Chen lives. She's a pretty good fighter. There's a lot of cool stuff you can do with her, but the Mystic and Guardian access doesn't quite work that well together. It does give her a lot of defenses, and she can keep herself alive, but in terms of your primary door kicker, she starts off a little bit weaker than others. And it does take a bit of work to tool her up. That said, once you get to the Cyclopean Hammer, she's away to the races. But that's mostly a commentary on how broken that card is. She can also use the Runic Axe really well. Again, that's a commentary on how bad Runic Axe and Cyclopean Hammer are, not how good Lily Chen is herself. Still, she is a very different style of fighter and does give you access to things that you normally wouldn't if you were playing this kind of martial character. She also gets access to Promise of Power, and I'll put that in every single deck that I can. Next up we have Bob Jenkins. Bob has a stat line of 2, 4, 3, 3, with the 4 being in book. Bob's special ability is that he gets an extra action to play an asset, but not only his own assets, he can play assets from other people. That's pretty cool. Bob starts off with survivor cards and tools into rogue cards, so he can pick up all the fancy, expensive rogue stuff, which is pretty cool. So I really like Bob's narrative arc that he starts off rags to riches. Also like that he can play pretty effectively as a fighter, as a clue getter, or as a flex or a support character. There's a lot of things you can do with Bob. I don't necessarily think he's aces at anything, but he is a really good all-round generalist type character who can do a whole bunch of things. And he has so many different builds, and that's a cool feature about Bob. Because assets are cool. Everyone likes assets. The only thing people don't like about assets is having to pay their cost and putting them into play. And Bob has access to a ton of money cards, and he gets a free action to put them in play, so use those assets. Now, where do I think Bob lives in the grand scheme of things? I think he's middling. I think Bob's going to go in B tier somewhere. Where do I think he lives? Probably just behind Wendy Adams. Yep. Just chop him in there. He's pretty good at just about everything, but he's not a standout character in anything in particular. But a free action every turn to use assets, and assets are really good. I love extra actions, so Bob gets an uptick from that. Next up, we have the Butler, Carson Sinclair, who has a stat line of 2, 2, 2, and 2. He has an additional action, which is something I always like. But his special action is to give out extra actions to other characters. And he can do that to each player once per turn. So ideally, you want him following around the other players and giving them bonus actions. He has that really excellent deck building option that gives him access to Guardian cards, and then he can pick one of 3 other classes and get up to 10 0-1 level cards from that class. In his case, it's Seeker, Mystic, and Survivor. I played him through the Scarlet Keys the first time through with a Survivor access. And I had a whole bunch of Tesla stuff in the deck, and he was a bit of a Bible-thumping Carson, using his abilities to cure people of horror and add a lot of blessed tokens into the bag and do stuff with blessed tokens, as well as hand out lots of actions. Carson kind of sucks in 2-player and is incredibly good in 4-player because he's all about maximizing the rest of your team's actions. The campaign I played him through was 3-player, and he was very good in that. On paper, he seems like he'd be a terrible, terrible character and dreadful to play. But in practice, he's a hell of a good time. So I'm going to put Carson up in the A tier because he makes everyone else in the game betterer. I'm going to put him just after Jacqueline Fine. If you've got a team that, say, consists of Daisy and Tony Morgan and yourself, well, that's an extra Tony action and an extra Daisy action, and they're going to be tooled up to do the things they need to do. And on top of handing out those bonus actions, you can just take care of all the trivial stuff that no one wants to do. Like getting rid of people's weaknesses by taking 2 actions to remove them. Carson's a really different playstyle, but it seems to work exceedingly well. And as I say, on paper, you look at this guy and you think, he won't be that much fun. But he's so much fun to play. Or at least, he was for me. Next up, we have Vincent Lee, one of the original Arkham Horror characters. He has a stat line of 3, 4, 3, 1, with the 1 in foot and the 4 in book. His special abilities are kind of odd one. When you heal damage off someone in your group, you get to give them an On the Mend card. This card has 2 wildcard symbols on it and can be committed to a later test. Gives him a little boost. His card access is kind of weird as well. It's the inverse of Carolyn's. He gets level 0 to 5 Seeker cards, he gets limited access to Survivor and Guardian cards, and he gets any cards that heal damage. So it's a wide and varied and unusual pool of cards. I really wish Vincent had Full Fist. I really wish that he was the fighting Seeker. That would make him far more interesting to me. As it is, I've played in the campaign with this guy, and I mostly found what he did somewhat busy work. It's nice to have the on the mend stuff, but sometimes it felt like you were healing damage for the sake of healing damage just to get the card, where you probably could have been doing something more useful. I feel like he's a character you can fall into a trap, where you're doing a whole bunch of activity, but not necessarily advancing the game. And I think that's baked into the character a lot more than it is with, say, Carolyn Fern. I think he's probably a D for me, or at the very bottom of C. Yeah, he's probably at the very bottom of C for me, behind Sister Mary. Maybe just ahead of Sister Mary. No, just behind. Bordering top of D. I don't care for Vincent Lee. I don't really like his gameplay loop. He's set up to be a primary clue getter with a stat line, but he kind of has to work as a flex character, and he's a support character. I mean, you could build him around the whole Seeker support thing with lots of card draw for everyone, but yeah, I don't know if that would be particularly good, and I think Minh Thi Phan does that sort of build a lot better. I think in general, damage is a lot less scary in Arkham Horror than horror damage is. Horror damage tends to be what takes us out most of the games I've played. That or running out of the Doom Clock. Very rarely do people get taken out by physical damage. And I feel in order to get the boost Vincent needs, you need to be taking that physical damage. So in some ways, you need to be losing a little for him to add a boost. Or you need to be doing damage to yourself to get that boost, and that just sounds like wasting time. C tier for Vincent Lee, not a big fan of that character. Next up, we have Kimmani Jones, who is a character I am very conflicted about. Kimmani has a stat line of 3, 2, 2, 5. Their ability is a quick action that allows them to engage an exhausted enemy. Then they can do a test as an action to evade a non-elite enemy to discard it. So you can evade something once, re-engage it, and then evade it a second time to eliminate it, which is a different way of dealing with monsters than anyone else really gets to do. which is cool. That's quite neat. Their card access is very unusual though. They have access to rogue cards and then 0 to 4 tool cards. Now, I think that their evasion thing works really, really well against most minions, but it kind of unravels against elites, and that's where I've seen Kimmani really struggle, is in games where there's a lot of elites. Now, there is a build you can do where you get like the ornate bow and the cleaning kit, and you're popping out 3 damage a time, and that's reasonably good, but it does take quite a bit of XP, and it does rely on that one particular weapon. So yeah, Kimmani, I think Kimmani is very good at evading, but again, it's a one-trick sort of character, so I'm going to put them... I think they are better at that than Rita Young is, so I'm going to probably put them a couple of steps up from Rita on the C tier. I'm going to give Kimmani another go, I think, and try that Ornate Bow deck again, see how it works. There's a few new cards that have come out in the Drowned City that I think would work well with Kimmani, so I'm willing to give them another go, but right now, they feel kind of middling to me. I know there's people out there who rave about Kimmani and say that Kimmani is one of the top characters in the game, but I'm just not feeling it myself. Next up is Amina Zedane, a character with a stat line of 3, 3, 3, and 3. Not the best stat line. Her special ability is once per turn, she can play an asset for 3 less than normal, but you have to put a doom on it. Her card access is Mystic cards 0 to 5 and Charm cards 0 to 4, which gives you access to a bunch of interesting little cards. I do not like Amina Zedane. I have tried making decks with her. I've tested them numerous times. I've put them into play, and it's just so much work to get anywhere. The Doom suite of cards just isn't good enough. And if you're not using those Doom cards, you're trying to use the standard Mystic cards, and by and large, having a 3 brain score, that's not a good look. It doesn't really matter if you can afford those assets if you're starting 2 down compared to another Mystic. I'm going to put her in the F tier. I think she's 1 step above Calvin Wright, who I think is completely and utterly useless. But I find her so much work for very little reward. Like, the stuff you can do with her involving Dream Diary, but again, that just says Dream Diary is amazing. Like, you compare what Amina Zedane can do with Dream Diary to what Amanda Sharp can do with it, and it's a bit of a joke. If Amina Zedane had a stat line of 4-2-4-2, and could use like the Blood Right stuff and really lean into being a Mystic fighter as well, or a Mystic flex, using both those stats, there might be something here. But the 3-3-3-3 just sabotages this character. It doesn't matter when the asset says you can use your brain or your fight score +1 when they're all 3s. It's just kind of ordinary. And Doom is a big risk. In some scenarios, if there's a Doom clock of 3 or something, do you really want to be bringing down an asset that's adding 1 to the Doom unless you're going to get rid of that immediately? And yeah, you can pick up things like Sin Eater that gets rid of Doom or manages Doom. But again, that's a whole bunch of work to get you to the point where you're starting to be okay compared to unexperienced characters. So yeah, I think Amina Zedane is the biggest design whiff they've had. I get Calvin, at least they were trying something really cool and interesting. Amina Zedane's just, we needed a Mystic with 3 stat line because we've done 3s across the board for everyone else. Next up, we have Daryl Simmons, the photographer. Daryl has a stat line of 2, 5, 2, 3, with the 5 being in book. He starts with his Kodak camera in play, and he has a special ability that during a skill test at your location, he can spend 1 evidence from an asset you control to reduce the difficulty of this test by 2. The Kodak gets evidence on it when treacheries or critters are encountered. So it does power up, and there are other cards you can use to get evidence. His card access is really good too. He has Survivor cards 0 to 5 and Seeker cards 0 to 2. This guy is an ace clue getter, and he is the absolute stellar star of the test at 0 archetype. I think a real good indicator of how good Daryl Simmons is how many cards that came out with him got tabooed almost immediately, like Shed a Light. I'm going to put Daryl right up the top. I think he is one of the best clue getters in the game. If someone turns up with Daryl, I'm probably going to put him just in front of Trish and Daisy. Yeah, he's going to go right up there towards the top. I think Daryl Simmons, the test from 0 archetype, and just being able to drop difficulties with his evidence like that, picking up other cards that have evidence so you can just start accumulating it, he can steamroll. And occasionally, he can do things like, here's a monster that's trying to get me. I guess I'll just reduce the difficulty to evade it and get away. He has a really deep toolbox. And not only that, he's just raw power to start with. It's really hard to go wrong with Daryl Simmons if you just play, I'm going to get lots of clues and I'm going to reduce difficulty and cash in when difficulty hits 0. Great character, great investigator, probably a little busted, which is why they had to taboo a bunch of those cards, but I really enjoy his gameplay loop. So while he's in the S tier, he's one of the S tier characters that I myself would still be keen to play. Next up we have Charlie Kane, who has a stat line of 1, 1, 1, and 1. Charlie's special ability is he has 3 extra ally slots. His special ability is during a skill test you are performing, exhaust an ally asset you control. For this test you gain 1 skill value, plus 1 additional skill icon, plus an additional +1 for each skill icon that ally has that matches the test type. This is the Ally Investigator. His deck building's really cool as well. He has access to neutral cards, all the allies, level 0 to 5, and then he picks 2 other colours. Level 0 to level 2 cards from those 2 colours that he picked. That means there's 10 possible different builds you can do with Charlie. And I believe there was a series online where different channels did each of those different builds. Charlie is a character I've only tinkered with. No one in my campaign has played him. He looks like he could be incredibly strong, but he takes a long time to tool up. You can't just get out of the gates and go fast with Charlie Kane because you need to be bringing down those assets. He's got all those slots he can put things in, but he doesn't necessarily have the money right away to pay for all of them. So it might take you, 2, 3, 4 turns to get really powered up. Then I think he'd be quite good. But to me, that sounds like a B tier character. That sounds like a character that, when you're playing, they have a weakness. And I'm going to probably put him in here in the B tier somewhere. Where do we want to slot him? I think he's probably about here. Yeah, that sounds about right. And I'll pop Charlie Kane in here. Again, I haven't played this guy a lot. I've done a bit of theory with him. I've played him through some test scenarios, but I haven't put him through a full campaign. So this is really just based on a bunch of reckons. And the 2 classes I played with him for my test were Seeker and Rogue because I wanted card draw and I wanted money. And I figured that would be the way to go with him. I think Guardian would work really well with him as well because it's got a whole bunch of cards that interact well with allies. So yeah, maybe Guardian and Rogue for lots of allies, lots of cards. But as I say, there's 10 possible builds with this guy, or there's 10 possible combinations you can start building from. And that makes him pretty cool and pretty replayable. But yeah, he's very hard to theory craft, and I do need to test this one out more. Next up, we have Wilson Richards, the Handyman. A character who has a stat line of 3, 3, 3, and 3, but effectively it's 4, 4, 4, and 4, and you'll find out why in a second. His special ability is reduce the resource cost of the first tool asset you play each round by 1. And then you get +1 skill value using skill tests on tool assets. His deck building is level 0 to 5 Guardian cards and all of the tools. Plus he has access to some improvise and upgrade cards as well. This might surprise a few people, but Wilson Richards is the deck I have played which was the single strongest clue getter I've ever had. This guy, but the cheap tools, the getting bonuses to tools, and the access to all those tool tests, you can get him out to do practically anything. I think he is a strong A. He might have been an S tier, but they they tabooed a bunch of the cards I was using. I'm going to put him really high up the A tier. Yeah, probably just behind Mandy. Just behind Mark, actually. I don't think he's busted, but I'll bring up the cards I was using to test for 3 clues a turn and just keep this going. But he was moving into locations that had 9 clues on them and cleaning them out within a round. He consistently through a campaign. He did so much work. Wilson Richards is a really neat, flexible character. He's a really neat clue-getting character, and you could probably make him into a good fighter. Tools are neat, and he uses them so much better than the Kimmani decks I've seen. Next up, we have Kate Winthrop, who has a stat line of 2, 4, 2, 4. Those 4s are in book and foot. Her special ability takes a little bit of explaining. She has this thing called the Flux Stabilizer, and once you activate it by placing a clue on it, it flips over. It allows you to put a clue on a science asset in order to get +2 on the next test you do. This potentially means that Kate, if she's got a lot of science assets out, which she will, and you've got clues, you can add those +2s to an awful lot of tests. Her deck building's a little on the dull side. She has access to Seeker cards, Science cards 0 to 4, and Insight cards 0 to 1. I just finished playing Kate through the Forgotten Age, and she turned out to be remarkably well suited to that campaign. The ability to get +2 to a test out of the hat, like Mark Harrigan does, was really, really, really useful and saved me from a whole bunch of treacheries. Once she's got a clue and a science asset, you can treat her stat line as being too high than it is when needed. And that's without adding skills, and I played her as a very skills-focused character. I think she's very solid. I think she's very hard to kill as well. I'm going to put her in the top of the B tier. I'm going to put her just above Akachi. I don't think she's necessarily as good a straight-out investigator as a Harvey or a Rex, but for a Seeker, she was a tank. I avoided a whole bunch of treacheries that did a lot of damage to everyone else. And I came out of that campaign with half the trauma of anyone else in our group. Simply because when I needed to pass a test to not take hideous damage, I could do it. If I had the clues available, I could put them on a science asset. You can also run clue drop with her, and she's really good at that as well. Instead, I was leaning into the succeed by mechanic and getting a lot of mileage out of that. So yeah, by the mid-game, I would have 5 science assets in play, and I could just put those clues out. Because once you're on an asset, you can still spend them to do stuff. You can still spend them to advance the agenda. Now, there was a little window of vulnerability when you just advanced an agenda and she had no clues, but that's why you kept skill cards in reserve. So yeah, I found Kate to be about the hardest to kill Seeker I've ever played. She absolutely shrugged off things that would have taken out lesser characters, and that makes her pretty good for me. Next up, we have Alessandra Zorzi. Alessandra has a stat line of 3, 4, 2, 4, with the 4s in book and foot. She has additional action each turn, which is to parlay. Her deck building is all the rogue cards and all the parlay cards. Now, Alessandra is an interesting character for me because she has 2 modes. She's a below average character if you're not wearing fine clothes. She's an above average character when she does have fine clothes. The character revolves around that one card entirely too much for my liking. That said, she's a very good flex character. She's good at dealing with enemies and picking up clues. And she can almost certainly be tooled up to be a primary clue getter. You do have to lean into the parlay cards a lot, and they are a bit of a mixed bag, but once you got your fine clothes, you're home and hosed. I'm going to put her, I think, let me check. I'm going to go, I think B tier for Alessandra. I don't think she does the same job as well as a Trish Scarborough. But I'm going to probably put her just behind Wendy Adams. I think that's probably a good place for her. Yeah, I think she's good, but she does revolve. The parlay thing isn't... It feels like a half-baked mechanic sometimes, parlay. It's like they decided they were going to make it a big deal for this one set. They chucked out a whole bunch of extra parlay cards, and yeah, that's about all the love and attention it's got. Like, compared to fight, investigate, and evade, parlay really is the red-headed stepchild of basic actions in the Arkham Horror game. And it did take them a long time to bring out a parlay specialist and, do something with her. So she is fun to play, and she can pull off things like Stir the Pot, which is an amazingly fun card to see played at the table. Less than 10 to go, and we're up to Kohaku Narukami, the folklorist. Kohaku has a stat line of 4, 4, 3, 1, with those 4s being in brain and book. His special ability is at the start of the round, you either add in a curse or a bless to the bag, whatever there's less of, or you take 2 of each out to get an extra action. But that's not really his special ability. His special ability is a signature card that allows you to fish a curse or a bless out of the bag. His deck building is Mystic cards 0 to 3 and all the blessed and cursed cards. And yeah, you are going to be playing around with blesses and curses a lot playing with this guy. I'm currently playing him through the Scarlet Keys again right now. And my experience with him is you need to get your signature item out and just revolve your gameplay around that. Have one test that with Ancient Covenant you can just pass every turn. And you can do fun stuff with the fact that you're pulling out one token a turn and you know a token's coming out. So there's a whole bunch of card effects in the game that trigger off drawing a token. And you can control when that's coming out. And that's kind of his gameplay loop. Is revolving around doing one auto-succeeding test a turn. And you can do a lot with that. I think he's pretty good, but he is a bit of a gimmick. And I'm going to pop him up, I think, into B tier. I think he's pretty strong. Probably put him just in front of Marie Lambeau. No, just behind. I've done some really cool stuff with Marie Lambeau that's quite comparable. But you are so dependent on the bless and curse mechanic. And if someone else is futzing around with that bag, it does limit you a little. And you are super vulnerable if you can't pick out your unique item, because without that, he kind of is just a bit of a gambler. He's a bit of a gambler character if you're not hedging your bets on absolutely getting the ability to draw a blessed token when and if you need it. Or the same with curse tokens. Yeah, cool character, cool idea, but he is very much a single gimmick. Then we come to farm boy Hank Sampson, who I'm not going to run through all his stats. I'm just going to tell you basically what he does. His core stat line is 3-1-5-3, with 5 being in fist. But he has 2 other stat lines that can come into play if this version of him is defeated. His special ability is he can take damage that would normally be dealt to other allies or investigators at his location. And when he would be defeated, he becomes one of the other versions of himself. His deck building is level 0 to 5 survivor cards, and then up to 10 other innate or spirit cards level 0 to 2. I think Hank is super boring. He's quite effective, he's a reasonable fighter, but he is an exceedingly dull character to play. I'm going to put him at the top of the D tier. I have little interest in playing him again. I played him through an online campaign and I found him dull as dishwater. I don't really get the logic behind his gimmick, how he takes the damage and then he transforms into a different character. I don't really get why that's happening. Doesn't necessarily make a lot of sense that his personality changes after he takes a bunch of damage. I feel like this was a gimmick searching for a character, or they had an idea for this character and it wasn't working, so they threw something together. He feels half-baked. He feels like a parallel investigator in many ways. And I don't really care for him. I'm sure he's really strong. I'm sure he's a good straight-up fighter. He seemed to be when I was playing him. But he's also just really uninteresting. I can't see a reason to play him when Daniela exists, for example. Or Yorick. Or Silas, for that matter. Alright, we're into Drown City, the home run. And we start off with Marion Tavares. Marion has a stat line of 2-3-4-3, with a 4 being in fight, and she has 1 less hand slot. Her special ability is when you play an event during your turn, draw a card, then you may play a different event. Limit once per round. That, my friends, is an additional action only to play events. And that's pretty cool. I love additional actions. Her deck building is all the Guardian cards, and then you pick one of the following traits: Fortune, Gambit, or Improvised. And you can take up to level 2 cards in your chosen trait. You also have up to 5 level 0 survivor cards on top of that. Marion is surprisingly effective. I picked her up, looked at her, and was like, event-driven character. I'm feeling a little bit of Nathaniel Cho here. And I looked at the losing the hand. I was like, that's not particularly good. You know, Guardians tend to want to use their hand slots. They've got lots of cool things in there. So I was a little bit worried about her. Then I saw her played, and she's really good. She is a very effective character and can get a lot of mileage out of those events. I'm going to put her in the top of B, I think. Yeah, let's put her right up B, just in front of... Yeah, just behind Akachi. I'm going to chuck her in there. I think she's a really interesting, effective character, but she's not busted in any way, shape, or form. She definitely has weaknesses. But events are cool, and having an event-based character in Guardian was really neat. Another one other than Nacho. And she plays out really differently to him as well, so I thought that was quite cool. I wonder if that's why they gave her one hand, so that she couldn't just, out of the box, use the boxing gloves, and so you wouldn't end up being in the same pattern as Nathaniel Cho, picking up those boxing gloves and running it that way. So, yeah, interesting character. And great to see more events characters. I do like them. Next up, we have Lucius Galloway, who has a stat line of 2-4-1-5, with the 4 being in book, the 5 being in foot, and the 1 being in his combat. Lucius has really great card access, up to level 5 Seeker and up to level 2 Rogue. Now, I think the inverse of this is a lot better, and that's what Trish Scarborough gets, but this is still pretty good. His special ability is after you successfully evade an enemy by 2 or more, discover 1 clue at your location. Limit once per round. I really wanted to like Lucius Galloway. I've played him through an Edge of the Earth campaign, and my friend's currently playing him through the Scarlet Keys. But there's one real big stinker for him, and that's his weakness. I've said before I don't like weaknesses that get shuffled back in, and his does, and it is such a millstone. He should be either an A or an S tier character, but I am going to put him, I think, maybe in the bottom of A or high end of B. I think high end of B. Let's have a look. He's still very good, even with that weakness. But I think I have to put him behind Rex and Harvey Walters and Norman Withers. So yeah, I think I'll put him just here, just in front of Silas. If he didn't have such an awful weakness, I think he'd be much further up this tier. Because that is a great stat line, that's a great ability, and it's great card pull. He is an excellent evading, clue-getting guy. But yeah, you can end up in somewhat of a spiral dealing with his weakness, and that sucks. Now we have Michael McGlynn, the gangster, with a stat line of 3153. With the 1 being in his book score, boy can't read, and 5 being in combat. His special ability is every time you use a gun, or a different gun at least, you get a resource. His card access is rogue cards level 0 to 3, and then everything to do with firearms, level 0 to 5. If it mentions firearms in any way on the card, he can use it. Michael McGlynn is a one-note character, and that one note is Big Gun Go Bang. But he does that exceedingly well. I played him through the Drowned City, and I ended up with so much XP in that campaign. He was an awful lot of fun, and I will put him in the A tier. I don't think he's quite busted as Tony Morgan, but he is definitely just behind Mark Harrigan in terms of being a badass fighter. Ooh, Daniel Reyes. I think he's just ahead of Daniela. I'm just going to slot him in there. He's very strong. It's kind of hard to go wrong when you get resources for shooting people. Like, you just shoot people and money comes out of them. And that drives his entire deck is, oh, cool, I've got big expensive guns, blat, 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 blat. Oh, I throw the gun away. Oh, I've got the money to buy a new one. Blat, 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 blat. He's a really good time. There's not much else you can do with him. He is very much the gun guy, but he does the gun thing really, really well. So yeah, Michael McGlynn, very one-dimensional character, but very good at what he does. Now we have Gloria Goldberg, the author. Gloria has a stat line of 5421, with the 5 being in brain and the 4 being in book. Really great stats for a mystic who's going to dabble in doing some clue getting as well. Her special ability is she chooses the investigator order during the mythos phase. And when she looks at one or more cards from the encounter deck, you look at one additional card and choose one non-elite card among them. You can either discard it, put it on top of the encounter deck, or place it face down beneath Gloria, basically removing it from play. Gloria's deck building is the cool one I really like. She has access to mystic cards and then can pick one of 3 subclasses. Those are Guardian, Seeker, and Rogue, and she can get 10 cards level 0 to 1 from the one she picks. I've played her in a campaign as a Guardian subclass, and she just decided how the Mythos deck was going to go pretty much every turn. There were no surprises coming out, things were happening in the order she wanted them to, and things were going to the players that she wanted to deal with them. And if things were getting out of control, well, she had wards and other things to deal with them. I thought she kind of wrecked the game in a little way. She is, I think, just after Amanda Sharp, the most busted character in the game. I think neutering the Mythos phase kills so much of the tension in the game. And a lot of the excitement and the pressure you're feeling to do anything. If every monster comes out and is dealt immediately to the fighter and they're right there and they can deal with it, that's a bunch of actions they have to do to get over to where the monster is. If every single brain check goes to the mystic who's got 7 brain in their stat, then they're going to pass those tests and you're not going to suffer negative consequences. And if there are really squirrely things like ancient evils, well, they go to Gloria and she uses a ward on them and gets rid of them. She just kind of kills the game, and I'm not sure there's a fun way to do it. I mean, I guess it's fun to do the first time, but I don't think she'd be very good to play on your first playthrough of a campaign, because I don't feel you'd get to fairly judge what the campaign was like, because she'd just be shutting down whatever the scenario is trying to do to you. She'd be like, nope, that's not happening. Type. Yeah, Gloria Goldberg's a bit busted good, so I think I'm going to pop her up the top there, and agree with everyone else who says that she is just a bit on the stupid side. Effectively, there's only 2 characters to go, and the first of those is George Barnaby. George has a stat line of 2433. Your maximum hand size is equal to the number of cards beneath George, and he can tuck cards beneath himself, up to 5 cards. Now, whenever you discard a card with George, once per phase, you can draw an extra card. So you're going to be looking at things that allow you to discard cards, so you can draw cards, and when you discard a card, it goes under George. There's a lot of busy work involved here, but it turns out to be really good. His deck building is all of the Survivor cards and up to 10 level 0 Seeker or Rogue cards. And his stat line naturally lends itself to being a bit of a clue getter. George Barnaby is exceedingly good. He is a fantastic investigator. The discard system that he uses is really powerful, and essentially he's drawing a lot more cards than anyone else is in this game. You take Forced Learning, the card you're discarding is going under your character and you're drawing an extra card to replace it. He's very, very good. I'm not sure he's busted quite yet, but he is heading straight to the top of the A tier. And he's popping just ahead of Mark Harrigan. I am sorely tempted to put him up in the S tier, but I don't think he's quite that much bullshit. He's close, though. He's very, very close. And I think if I play him another campaign, I might be able to unlock him to be S-tier level nonsense, because his ability's really good. The thing that really annoys me about it, though, is he's like a better Patrice. He's kind of what the Patrice gameplay feels like it should be, but he does it even better. And which is cool. They took the idea and they improved on it, but it does kind of leave Patrice there feeling a little unloved. So yeah, George Barnaby, he's real good. This final Drowned City, there's some strong characters in here. And we're going to finish off by looking at Agatha Crane. Now, there are two versions of Agatha Crane. One is a Seeker and one is a Mystic. Their stat lines are 4, 4, 1, 3, with the 4 being in Brain and Book and the 1 being in Combat. Their abilities on the front are the same. When your turn ends, if you sealed, cancelled, or ignored one or more Chaos tokens this round, play a spell or inside event from your discard pile. After that event resolves, remove it from the game. The difference is their deck building. The yellow one has Seeker access 0 to 5, while the purple one has Mystic access 0 to 5. The Mystic one has Spell access 0 to 3, and the yellow one has Inside access 0 to 3. I'm yet to play these two through a full campaign, but I'm familiar with the sort of shenanigans they do from some of my other classes because I like playing Mystics a lot, that I got a pretty good idea of how powerful and well they will work. And my gut feeling tells me that Agatha Yellow is an A-tier investigator and will be around about middle of the A-tier, and that Purple Agatha will be a B-tier investigator and towards the top of the B-tier. Maybe chuck you in about here with Kohaku. I think the insight stuff and setting up as a primary clue getter and doing that is probably a stronger approach than the spell stuff. I might be wrong there. That's my gut feel based on a couple of tests and playing around with deck building with the characters, but I'm not an expert on this character. So these two ratings are very much on vibe. Agatha's probably going to be one of the next characters I test and play through, because I really want to see how both of these versions play out. And I do really like that cancelling system. I've used it a lot in Father Mateo with Jacqueline Fine and other characters I've really enjoyed playing. So I think there's definitely something here. So yeah, that is the end of my tier ranking video. I have no idea how Justin from Playing Board Games does this in one sitting. I took 3 sittings to do this. I took like 2 big breaks in the middle because there's an awful lot to record at once. And yeah, let's just scroll through the list. I will reflect on it. And yeah, I think I'm reasonably happy with that S tier. I think maybe Trish and Yorick might be a little high, but I do really like those 2 characters. George and Mark Harrigan and Mandy could possibly go up into the S tier. Wilson Richards is definitely a fan pick for me being that high. Sorry. Scrolling a bit further down. The B tier looks pretty right. C tier looks pretty right. And I think there's only 2 characters down there in the F tier. They're the only 2 characters I look at and go, I can't think of any particular reason I want to play them. I'd probably put Hank down there, but at least I know he's effective. And then we've got these parallels. And yeah, I'll quickly run through the parallels with the limited amount I know about them and just give you 2-second reviews. Roland Banks is fine. Daisy Walker's terrible. The Skids O'Toole one's really good. Agnes Baker one seems like a lot of fun. The Wendy Adams is really super busy, but I think could be quite powerful if you don't mind the busy work involved with that character because it's a lot of extra rules. Ashcan Pete's bordering on busted. The Zoey, we have played Zoey through a campaign with that special side and she was quite good. I don't know if she's any better than the original. Parallel Jim looks really interesting, but I haven't played him. I can't even remember what Rex does. Jenny has like the skills thing, but I just think her stat line's going to kill that anyway. The Father Mateo, from what I've looked at, looks almost busted good. And Monterey Jack, I thought was really bad. I had a look at what he did, and I thought, you're actually worse than the original Cheeseman, so maybe not. So yeah, thanks for sitting through this incredibly long video on Arkham Horror, the card game. I've enjoyed doing this. This feels like some closure, getting through all of the campaigns and all the other things that I've done over the last 3 years playing so much Arkham. To be able to talk about it for 3 odd hours is kind of amazing. There are a lot of characters here, and there's a lot more I can do with them as well. There's definitely a few characters that I haven't properly played, and I am going kind of off vibes. but the vast majority of them I have played through at least one campaign with. So that's a lot when you think about it. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And once again, thank you to Justin from Playing Board Games for sending me the template for this video. I really appreciate it. And a reminder, 3 Minute Board Games does not do paid content. Keep us independent by supporting us on Patreon. And if you enjoyed this video, like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Until next time, take care.